Good evening. It's 6:01. Appears that we have quorum to call to order the Finance Committee of October 4th, 2022. First item is public appearances, non-agenda items. We do not have any registered. We will move right into the action items. Now, item 3, department presentations, the 2023 budget presentation schedule. First item up is the budget document logistics presented by Misty Dodge, and I will turn the floor over to Misty.
Thank you, Randy. So I'm not going to get into the specifics or the priorities of what is or isn't included in the budget. That will leave to the mayor after me. I'm going to just talk about some logistics, how to read the document, how to interpret what's included, what isn't, that type of a thing. So to start, the budget is available. This is the Fitchburg's main website. If you go to government and then under departments, and to the finance department. That's where you'll find the budget. Over here on the left, you'll click on financial reports or financial records and reports. And then the budget stuff is all up here at the top of this screen. So it's got last year's adopted budget, the schedule if you're curious about what next steps are, and then the mayor's proposed budget is at this link here. Could use the PDF instead though, because that's easier for me. So when you have the budget in front of you, the easiest way to navigate through it is to use the bookmarks over here. And so you can see it's got kind of the summary information up top. The mayor's letter is a great place to start, so that's why it's highlighted blue. All of the new staffing information is in red font. So you can see throughout the bookmarks, there's a variety of red fonts to kind of point those out for you. Back to the summaries. So there's a lot of things that are purple highlighted. These are items that I've estimated. So especially tax rates, assessed values, equalized values, all of that is all an estimate at this point. Our board of review is still in process and the manufacturing values haven't been equated yet. So that's normal. This time of the year, there's always some uncertainty, but usually my numbers are pretty close. The big nuance we have this year is the town of Madison. So I know we've talked about this a lot, but for the public that are new to the budget process conversation, so with the town of Madison, its values, the budget is based on values as of 1/1/2022, when the town existed. But they obviously won't be here when the time comes to issue the tax bills or have a 2023 budget themselves. So there's a variety of different ways that tax bills and tax rates and all of that could be done. I've been working with the county, the state, the city of Madison, and the town of Madison to try to figure out how we're going to make this all work. There's still a lot of uncertainty, but I put the estimates in here based on how I think it should be done, if I am reading the tea leaves right. So they are still estimates. I'm hopeful they'll be close, but they are a lot more fluid than what they've been in other years. Other things to point out, so the levy limit calculation is here on page 20. So looking at the proposed budget, so normal calculation without the TID adjustment, we would be 502,000 negative or over levy limits. But if we do use that TID adjustment, which I assume Aaron will talk about in a little bit, that's 505,000 that we'd have available. And then this number over here is how much levy capacity we actually have at $2,621. So what that means for council as you're putting together your amendments, if your plan is to submit something to add that's paid for by property taxes, you'll probably have to take something out that's paid for by property taxes because there's not a lot of room available. The expenditure restraint calculation is included in here as well. At this point, we show that we are over by 1.4 million, which seems like a lot, but honestly, I'm not worried because included in the budget, which I'll talk about briefly during my section, is $2.3 million transfer from the general fund to the capital projects fund based on the adopted CIP. And so we have that 2.3 million that we can kind of play with to make sure that we still qualify for expenditure restraint. So while it looks like it's a big problem, I will submit an omnibus amendment to make sure that we get that where it should be. We always have this average home calculation here, which is the one that I really like. I talk about it at CIP, or at committee of the whole time. Looks at the last 3 budgets, the average home's tax bill, how it would be spent by each one of our departments. Also new this year is we have the average multifamily apartment, but I only have this year. So I'm working with the assessor to try to get at least 2 more years of back data so you can see some trends, and then we'll build up to the 5 years later. Wanted to point out that that is new this year. And then another thing that's come up a lot of years is about the components of our budget. And I want to remind you that almost 70% of our budget is personnel. So if you're looking at, how we spend our money, the bulk of that is on staffing. And again, that makes sense because at our heart, we are a service provider to our community. So tonight, we're going to go round robin through our department heads. They are going to focus on their executive summaries, which includes their 2022 accomplishments, some of them, of course, being pending, things they expect to get done by the end of the year, 2023 initiatives, and then the significant changes from last year's budget to this year's budget, and then talk about their new proposals. So they're going to keep it kind of high level, but if you guys have any questions whatsoever, as detailed as you want, this is your chance to make sure you get those questions answered and you feel comfortable that you know what all is included in here. Staffing proposals. So if you look at them, for example, this is the first one we'll see tonight. So there is a summary of the staffing proposals in the summary section. And if you look at this orange column for the mayor's budget, you can see which ones are included and which ones are not. And then there's detail sheets within the department's piece. I did try to include in the top right corner in red font whether it was included in the mayor's budget or not. But I'll remind you, this is a very manual process, so it's possible I made an error, but they should be correct. And then that's it. So, I guess any logistics questions?
For the public, can we just say the schedule, the upcoming dates that are relevant?
Absolutely. So tonight and tomorrow night are the hearings. So the department heads will come in and share their requests with everybody, and you get to do kind of that information gathering stage. Council amendments. So if you want to make a suggestion for how the budget should be changed to better match the citizens' community's priorities, those are due Friday, October 14th. And I also missed, there is a public hearing at our next common council meeting, so you can get a chance to hear from the public about what they think need to be changed. So then, yes, the amendments are due October 14th. That's a Friday. They will be posted to the city's website the following Friday. Then there's a public hearing. Then it's a committee of the whole meeting on the 26th of October, where we'll go through each one of the amendments and do all of the discussion. There's no action that night. It's just discussion. Then the following council meeting, which I'll remind you was moved up a week because of the election. So November 1st, we'll start with all the normal business. At the end of the meeting, there will be a public hearing where the public can share their thoughts with you about the proposed amendments. And then the council will go through each one of the amendments and vote on them individually. We may have to do that multiple times until we have a budget that meets levy limits. That's all I have.
Okay. With that, I will turn it over to Mayor Aaron Richardson for the introduction of his budget. Mayor, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Good news is that we've all been through this at least a couple times, so you kind of know what the process is and what to expect. Good news is that, at least preliminarily, we think that the average taxes are going to be about the same this year as they have been last year. Depends a little bit on your assessment, how much that changed relative to everyone else, and a few other things, town of Madison, but we don't see a large increase at least, which is a good sign for our residents, because it is getting more and more expensive to do anything right now with inflation. But the other big thing is not only commitment to taxpayers, but commitment to employees. And this is something that I'm very proud of in this budget. There's a lot of things that we're doing to help employees in this. The first is implementing the market analysis we did of our positions. And so as a result of this, every staff that is non-represented by one of the unions is going to get a minimum 3% increase in their salary. Now, the last few years, I've been at 2%, except for the Steve Arnold years, which were 0%. 2% is what we've done pretty much forever. And so I'm happy to see that we're actually able to do at least 3%, and many people will be over that. And it does help also with retention and recruiting and all of those things as well, which is a challenge. We've seen a number of employees leave because they get significantly more money somewhere else. We're also increasing all employees to a minimum of $15 per hour, which includes seasonal employees, paid on-call employees. Really, everyone is a minimum of $15 an hour now. We're also adding for the first time an incentive of 50 cents per hour for people who are bilingual. And so I'm very excited about that as well. I think it's really important that we have people that work here that can communicate with members of the public that might need someone to speak in their native language. So I'm very excited about that piece. And then also very excited for the first time to have Juneteenth as an official city holiday starting next year. Continuing the commitment to road maintenance as well, which is what I've been doing for the last few years as well. We got a lot of roads and we keep adding more. They have a lot of needs and upkeep, and Town of Madison's going to add more that probably haven't been kept up very well. So we need to keep that commitment to road maintenance and also committing to expenditure restraint. That's a lot of money. It's $650,000 roughly that we get from the state. And so I think it's important that we continue to get that, and we've done that for the last number of years as well. There are some changes from the CIP that I want to highlight, and a lot of these things are things that really are just getting pushed back more than anything else. You know, some of these things are paid for, we're going to be in the ARPA budget or the TID closure money, and we just ran out of money. We knew that we were $2 million over on those things, but that doesn't mean that these things are going to go away. I do think these things can happen, just not going to happen next year. One is $150,000 that we're saving in the financial and other software, and that's actually in here, but it's just changing it from CIP to operating. We don't really know what solution we're going to use yet, and if it's going to have a large upfront cost or it's going to be something that has a low upfront cost but higher ongoing cost. So the money is in there. We're just kind of transferring it from the capital to the operating. And then the hybrid electric vehicles, we had put initial $30,000 in there from the TIG closure funds. We're having a hard time getting them right now, and so we have money that's available, and so we still have that. And so I just thought that, as we're trying to balance the budget, yes, this is important. We want to keep putting money into here. We will have another TID closing and more TID closure money next year. And so at this point, I push that back, but not to say it's not important. It's just we can't get these right now. So just do want to still continue to put money in there. I know we've got the strategy of putting money from gas savings in there, which probably isn't going to happen this year, but we do have that ongoing strategy to continue to put money in there because it is important to start adding more of those vehicles. Let's see. The street resurfacing and qualified census tracts. We had $1.5 million that we were going to put in those the streets in the qualified census tracts. We lowered that to $1 million because we were over in TIG closure funds. It's not to say these roads aren't going to get resurfaced. They are. It just won't be next year used with TIG closure funds. So we were going to move some things up a little bit in those census tracts, but unfortunately, we had to just push some of those back a little bit. And those are things that had gotten pushed up because of the TIG closure funds. So it's just not doing as many things earlier as we had hoped to do. We did push back the Tower Hill Park Shelter again. And that, it's really, again, TIG closure funds were overspent and we had to save that money. But again, it's just delayed. These things aren't getting removed. They're just delayed. And then we're still, for the rent-to-own townhome project, we're still trying to figure out the details of that. And so we do have some money that's actually already in the budget, continuing to figure out the program details. But for now, delaying the land acquisition and construction, just because there's still a lot of unknowns about this. We're trying to figure out how this is going to work, who's going to help kind of do this. And we have some feasibility and planning going on right now for that. So it's all a lot of unknowns. It just seemed right. And talking with Chad as well, that it seemed right to, again, just push this back. We're not canceling any of these things. We're just pushing them back a year. And then expenditure straight, we're getting that, like we mentioned, and applying those to specific projects. And then staffing, so this is very exciting. I was worried that we weren't going to get 3 or 4 positions in here, but we're able to either have new or kind of enhanced positions on 12, I believe, different staffing proposals. I did something a little different. I did ask staff to tell me what is your number one priority in staffing, and then if you have a second one, what would that second one be? But then cap it at that, because we're not going to give one department 3 positions. And frankly, I don't know that we should give one department 2 positions with the needs that we have across all departments. I don't want to look like we're playing favorites to any department. A lot of departments have a lot of needs in here, but what you'll see is that I did put a focus on fulfilling kind of the most urgent request from as many departments as possible. And if you look back at the now 4 budgets that I've put together, almost every department will have either added a staff or at least increased hours for their staff. There's only I think 2 that haven't, but we did also include that float position, which does help those departments. I think the 2 are planning and zoning and legal. Oh, and economic development. So, well, you will in this budget. The other ones that haven't before will do in this budget, assuming it gets passed. I put it in there, so you'll have to go to someone else if there's problems there, John. But there are departments like building inspection that have not, but I think are a big need and something we've been trying to get in for a while. And there's 5 positions that I really thought were the highest priority that I was trying to get in for sure. We were able to do more than that. But the 5 that I think are absolutely critical is building inspection, 1 in the police department, 1 in the fire department, 1 in finance, and also the assistant city planner. When you look at what we're trying to do and the things that we're trying to get done, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, and you can see that really. I guess I'm skipping bullet points a little bit.
Aaron, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
It's not the assistant city planner, it's the director of administrative services. Administration.
Sorry, yeah. Essentially, someone reporting to Chad as assistant city administrator. Well, it's not really assistant city administrator, but it's Chad's right-hand person, maybe. Which way do you want to refer to, Misty?
The director of administrative services.
All right. Ultimately, it's Chad's
title.
right-hand person is their
One of them, yep.
their function, I guess. But, there's some departments that have not had growth for a long time. I think it's been 15, 20 years since finance has had a position. I think building inspection has actually gone down over the last 15 years, so it's actually getting them back up to where they have been in the past. Technology is something that our technology department is important as well. And really this, you look at, we're using TIG closure money to do this a year early like we did last year. But this is probably our last chance in a while to add a significant number of positions going forward, unless something changes at the legislature and they actually start increasing our shared revenue. But it's going to be a challenge to add more than a couple positions, and there's significant needs in fire department, police department, in a few years, EMS, public works. I mean, parks could use more people. And so it's going to be hard to do more than 1 or 2 going forward. And next year, we already actually have a structural deficit. I think I get to that later in the letter, and I'll talk about that more. But anyway, with the positions, I really deferred to the department heads and what was your number 1 priority, and I tried to fulfill as many of those number 1 priorities as I could. And I didn't fulfill the second priority of any department that had put 2 in, but I think it's important that we are doing everything we can to make sure that the city is ready to go forward in the future. And the town of Madison is a big part of that. They've done big impacts, and that's why departments like building inspection need more help, because there's a lot more people, a lot more homes and businesses in those areas. Public safety, the 2 positions are in command staff. There are big needs in, kind of the union positions, if you will, but that was the thing that they identified in their departments, and so I went with that. They do have a lot more needs, obviously, but again, I don't think it's right and fair to give them 2, 3 positions when there's so many other departments that haven't had positions for 10, 15, 20 years. But they do need those, and that's a future issue. I think, Misty, maybe we'll talk more about the EMS levy limits at some point in time. There is an adjustment that we can qualify for. I don't know if we've heard from the town of Madison, or town of Verona, I mean, but that's something that we just can, just the way the laws are, that we can get an adjustment from EMS if everyone agrees to it. I'll let Missy talk about that more later so I don't say something wrong. Like I mentioned before, we are doing the levy limit adjustment from TID foreclosure early, just like we did last year. And part of that is we need the staff now. The town of Madison is coming in less than a month now, and that's a lot of additional stress on our staff. It already has been in the planning. Also, Hub Phase 1, that, in talking to staff, they said that's not really going to be operational until spring of 2024. So we don't have any operating costs for that facility yet, because it's not going to be ready until 2024. And the costs of that have already essentially doubled from what we expected. They're already expected to be about $125,000. We thought they were going to be about $60,000 or so originally, and that is structural deficit, actually. But because Hub Phase 1 isn't going to be coming online next year, it really doesn't make sense probably to do Hub Phase 2 or the Teen Center yet. We're doing some feasibility on those right now. Also, we don't have that information. And ultimately, again, unless someone else is going to come forward and run this as a city, I don't know how it's ever going to happen when we're going to have a couple $100,000 maybe in additional levy limits going forward, and we need so many other staff. That's, if we get, from what I understand, Hub Phase 2, Teen Center, something like that, that could easily be $500,000 in operating costs. We're not going to have that additional capacity as things stand right now. Now, again, the legislature, I doubt it, but they could make a change and they could give us more funding, and that's possible. But again, getting it built, we can figure that out, but running it, again, the city, when you look at the facts, we're not going to have $500,000 a year to do that at this point in time. So until someone else comes forward that says they're going to run it, because the reality is we can try and enforce it, but we're going to have to close it down after a year because we have so many other needs. So we got to figure that out. We do have some money for planning and feasibility that we're starting. I know that staff is working on getting that out, and we need that information. And it's going to be, at least mid-2023 before we have that anyway. So that's all that information we should have for next year's budget. But again, is it needed? Yes. But when you look at the reality of it, I don't know how it's going to get paid for as is anyway. Talked about the one-time the ARPA TID money. We knew that we were overspent, and that's why some of these projects were delayed. We knew we were over $2 million over. There's a lot of projects on here, and frankly, we probably still have too many projects for staff capacity, if I'm being honest. I don't know that I'm optimistic we can get some of those things done, but reality is that I have too many projects already in there for staff, some departments more than others. We do have in here a change as well to try to adjust fees for senior center, especially with the rec department, to cover all the direct costs. So not the staff, not the direct staff, but the user fees, really wanting those to cover the other costs. So I think it's like refs and if you need game balls and that type of stuff. They haven't been covering that, but we do want to try and move forward to that piece. Let's see. There's a few accounts moved around. That's more of Misty wanting to make sure things are better reported, I think, or more than anything else. Town of Madison. Also, so we have two structural deficits. One is Hub Phase 1 for about $125,000, and the other one is transit, which we all agreed to expand transit. We have Town of Madison coming in, and that's another $125,000. So we have about a $250,000. You see Hub Phase 1 come in too. So we have about $250,000 structural deficit. Now we are getting some money from, it's in here somewhere, but about half of that I will be able to cover, but there is a structural deficit in here. And I don't like structural deficits. I know Misty hates structural deficits, but it is in here. And so it is something to think about for next year, is that where our $125,000 is essentially a position. So that's something just to be aware of for the future. And the reality is that, you know, even though we have great net new construction and we have a lot of growth, the challenges with increased costs of things like health insurance, it's going to be a challenge for us. You know, we're in a lot better spot than other places. I was talking to someone that works in the city of Lancaster, and they have $1,000 more in their budget this year than last year. $1,000 does not pay for the increased cost of health insurance. How do you give staff raises and something like that? So, you know, we are fortunate that way, but, you know, there's things that we're going to have to consider in the future, like public safety referendums, maybe even a referendum to fund the teen center and hub phase 2. I mean, that's another possibility. That's something for future councils to determine, but that's one way to go beyond what our restraints are, I guess. So something to think about going forward. But ultimately, like always, this is kind of my budget. You have the opportunity to make amendments. You'll hear from all the staff here about their needs and why they have what they have. But I'm very excited about the commitment to staff, and I think that's the big thing, is that we've seen, you know, staff getting a lot more money other places. We're hopefully trying to stop some of that and really recognizing that we had, you know, for example, we had staff who were at the top of their pay scale, so they couldn't get raises. This is changing that so they can actually get increases again. So I like that there's a huge commitment to staff. I like that it was going to have a minimal impact, minimal increase, I should say, on the tax bills as well. I can answer any questions, overall questions, if there are any, but I will be leaving to go to the fire department for their pinning ceremony as well.
Alder Gerhart, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Aaron. I wanted to just mention in Personnel Committee last week, we went through the market pool in great detail and covered exactly the process that staff went to decide if it was possible and why, the rationale behind each of the individual raises. So I will send the recording of that and the documentation that we looked at to council, just for some additional context to that, since it's such an important part of the budget. It was a really interesting conversation that I think is worthwhile.
Was it positive for the personnel committee, or was there concerns? Okay.
Yeah, overall, I mean, it would have been nice to have had some discussion prior to the budget so that we had a chance to kind of, you know, discuss it in advance. However, you know, there was lots of reasons why that didn't happen. It just wasn't possible. But that being said, after going through the whole market poll, very, very positive from the committee. I think long time coming, fixes some inequities, and I think also hopefully will help us with retention before the next year, because the raise is known going forward. The other thing that I don't think the mayor specific called out, but there's going to be the potential for merit-based raises next year, which again I think is a really important tool to keep staff engaged. So yeah, I just wanted to say that more information on that, because it's such an important part, and I'll send that out to the council.
Very good, thank you. Additional questions, discussion? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
We will move forward. First item is building inspection. John Crook, it's your floor.
Well, thank you, everybody. Yes, I'm one of those new hirees, and let's remember that's reinstating a position I had, not a new position, so it's reinstating. And we've been needed that position for quite a while. So we're going to go, I'll give you some numbers here quick, and it's kind of maybe a little amazing, maybe not. As of today, we had 100 new single-family house starts, 8 duplexes, 490 multifamily starts, and that's memory care, assisted living, and units. I've had my fingers on over $2 million in fees brought into the city. That would be my building fees, that's zoning fees, that's impact fees. So the actual number is $2,076,900. Let's take example, last year we did 132 single families, 30 duplexes, 304 multi-units. So we're on par, if not going to exceed what we had today. I think I had a half a dozen more house plans come in today. So the total permits as of today are 1,076. And last year we had 1322. So same amount of permits, same kind of stuff, which is kind of crazy. Our accomplishments this year, the biggest thing I think that everybody kind of knows, and I appreciate your guys' support, is now we are a 100% delegated community. That means we can do plan review, unlimited plan review for all commercial buildings now. So we went through E-Plan. I am going to, hopefully, we're working on it with Misty right now, get my I-Plan table that was long overdue. So as of hopefully the first of the year, we will take no paper copy plans in. It'll be 100% electronic, and I'll be able to review them on a 55-inch screen with a couple monitors. So that'll be huge for us. 2023 incentives. One is to get an inspector up and running. It's going to be extremely difficult. Sun Prairie is going through this right now. They had one, didn't work out, and I think the city of Verona had been trying to hire somebody, and I think they had to just farm it out to an inspection company. They just absolutely can't find anybody. But I got a couple leads on a couple people I know, so hopefully I can bring one in. But that will be a challenge in itself. Of course, Town of Madison, we've got a lot of mom and pop landlords over there. Those are the most difficult ones to deal with. The larger companies seem to have a little more money, deeper pockets, but we have reached out to them. We have made contact with them, so we're already kind of working with them. We've got several names on the list. Since I've been here 31 years, I'm going to be out of here pretty quick, so I'm trying to get 2 of my inspectors certified in commercial electrical and commercial plumbing. I hold those 2 certifications. So I also hold the commercial electrical inspectors delegation. That means we can do commercial electrical inspections throughout the city. So I also hold that. So one of those inspectors, or we'll have to hire somebody else to take that position. So hopefully we get that done in the next year and a half, because that's roughly my game plan. And we get trained on the I-Plan table. We should hopefully get that once we get it ordered. It's a 6 to 8 week process to get it in here. So it'll be around the first of the year. And then, of course, the curveball we got is OpenGov. I'm going to be learning a whole new software that I didn't really want to, but it is what it is. And we'll be learning OpenGov. I think, Misty, we're the first guinea pigs, right, for that? No? You guys will be?
Do you mean in the city or in the state?
In the city.
They're working on that as well as pet license right now.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we'll do. So that's a challenge in itself. I don't really go through the line-by-line item budgets for myself. I raised them just a little bit. I mean, some I didn't raise at all from last year. I think Misty knows we're pretty frugal with our money. I don't think I've ever went over budget in the 20-some years that I've been the department head. So I don't feel like we'll do it this year or next year. So there's really no big changes. I mean, $1,000 added to continuing ed. The gas is the gas. Maybe another $1,000 added for equipment and some stuff for the new inspector. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. It's nuts and bolts. I mean, I don't have a lot of items to deal with. So, but it's pretty straightforward. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Yes, Jim.
When you retire, did you say we'll be losing certification out of the department?
So, as of right now, I hold all the certification in the state of Wisconsin that you can get. I'm a unicorn. There's only like 23 of us in the state. I hold the commercial electrical and the commercial plumbing certifications, which basically is a master electrician, master plumber. And also, since I'm the commercial electrical inspector, I hold the delegation to be so the city can be delegated as commercial electrical inspection. So you won't lose them. It's just that one of my inspectors will have to pass those tests. And my assistant, basically Paul, is working on the electrical and the other one's working on the plumbing. So hopefully by the time in 18 months, one passes the one, the other passes the other one, and we'll be fine.
And those costs are included in your budget?
Yeah, that's in the continued ed, the classes that we're sending them to, and it's like $50. The state, it's a horrible, horrible, horrible time to schedule. You can't even schedule. I mean, if you want to take a test now in the state of Wisconsin, you maybe can get it in February, maybe. the testing sites are just been closed, and you have to take it in person, you can't take it online, and they're extremely difficult. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Oh,
Yep.
Go ahead, Alder.
Thank you. I did notice in the budget changes that you called out was an additional revenue, not an additional cost, and that was that service that we talked about back in
yeah,
August.
so E-Plan is right now, if you got a commercial plan, if an apartment building built in the city or 6 months ago, they would send it to the state would keep 100% of those plan review plans.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it gets sent, a little more complicated. It comes
Yeah.
to me.
Well, I remember,
Yep.
you explained it so well.
Yep.
So I don't want to have to make
Oh,
you
no,
redo
but
it.
now it comes to me, I send it to E-Plan, E-Plan sends it back, and each month, in which we should probably get a check because we've already had one there. At the end of each month, they give us 10% of the plan review fees that they collect.
Great. So we're anticipating about $10,000.
Yep, about 10,000-ish.
I just wanted to check with Misty too, because I feel like I don't track where exactly the revenues are estimated in the budget document. Could you help show? I mean, is that I assume that's reflected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So all of the numbers are at the beginning of the document. So here, there's that section, budget and actual details by account number. So the general fund, I assume, is the revenues that you're talking about in particular. And so they're all in the top part of that section.
Great.
So in that, then I give a rough estimate. I think the only time I missed my estimate for permit fees collected was in 2008. And I think that was increased a little bit to balance the budget, which I kind of didn't want it to be, but it did. And otherwise, we've grossly exceeded, because I'm very conservative, as Misty knows, with that. But so in a good year, we could make up that half of what the mayor is missing in fees collected. So, and I think next year is going to be a good year, unless the bottom falls out of the energy market or something. But next year, I think these numbers that I gave you tonight are going to be directly in line with what we're going to have next year for what we had in books. I think the following year is going to be good, but after that, we need to develop a single-family development. We need development, period, someplace, because Terravas will be full, Viridianville will be full, Quarry Ridge will be, all those will be filled, probably. So we'll need to have another, 300-400 lots developed here probably in the next 2 years.
Very good. Additional questions? All right, hearing none.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Yep, have a good night, everybody.
You as well. Moving on to planning and zoning. Deanna Schmidt. You are on Zoom. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to tell you a little bit about some of the things we've been working on. Our significant accomplishments this year is the working with the town of Madison and that process. We did outreach, land use inventory, the zoning review. We've proposed the zoning.
Hey, Deanna, did you happen to use the owl today and not change your speaker back? Because you sound like you're in a fishbowl.
Oh, no. I apologize.
Otherwise, I'm sure Fact TV can help us by increasing your volume a lot more.
Maybe she could call in.
Yeah, or you could call in.
Yeah.
Why don't we try Fact TV? Fact TV, how can you increase our volume quite a bit? Awesome, thanks, Chad. Deanna, you want to try again for a second?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, I apologize. So, what I was talking about was the town of Madison outreach and our work with that. We are in the process of assigning the zoning to each one of the parcels in the town of Madison, and our next public hearing with Plan Commission will be coming up on October 18th. So that's been a pretty detailed and significant process for the planning team. We facilitated 2 minor comprehensive plan updates, and we are working diligently to get the RFPs out for the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plan and then the Greenfield neighborhood plan because we know that John wants more single family lots.
Hey, Deanna,
So,
I'm sorry to interrupt again. I think maybe it would be best if you call in. Did you have a phone number on your Zoom? So I think we heard through that part. Do you mind if we go to the next person quick while you?
yeah,
So it's just,
go right ahead.
it's Mike. He'll be quick. And then we'll get back to the second half of yours once you call. Does that work?
I don't know.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deanna. Mike, the next item on the list is economic development. Mike Zimmerman. Mike, are you available?
Mike, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me and see me?
We can now. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Community and Economic Development Authority budget. This kind of covers three funds, the traditional economic development budget, the hotel room tax, and now the housing fund as well. So the accomplishments and areas of emphasis in 2022, where we're still working on that townhome housing pilot project. We continue to work with H&A to kind of find a path forward that works from a capacity and administration standpoint. And then we've also done outreach to the town of Madison businesses as we gear up for welcoming them to Fitchburg October 31st, working with multiple developments, everything from the Shea property across from Super Target, Royal Capital on the Fawside property, Edgewood College, and then the Hartung Fields and the creation of TID number 14 for that development. We've also been collaborating with Deanna and her team on getting ready for that Greenfield and South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plans. And thanks to the council for supporting the ARPA and TID dollars. As you heard from both John and Deanna, we want to try and get more single family lots out here so we have those available for development. Now we're still implementing the vision for North Fish Hatchery Road. We've got the Uptown Quick Trip that opens or has the grand opening and ribbon cutting tomorrow, October 5th at 9 to 11, 10 o'clock for the ribbon cutting if anybody wants to stop by there. Encompass Health broke ground for the rehabilitation hospital. We've added some new housing for seniors over behind Super Target. And then, I'm sorry, over here by, I'm confusing myself here, the Limerick Affordable Housing over here by Sain Road and Lacey Road, and then Limestone Ridge behind Super Target. And then we added the senior housing development, the Quarry Ridge as well. So we're kind of continuing to fill out our workforce and senior housing portfolio. Now we got the infusion of the 2.6 million from the housing fund that we're hoping to use for the rent to own. And CEDA's being a catalyst again with investing 50,000 to launch a project here in Fitchburg for the B-Cycle network. In 2023, some of the areas of focus are going to be continuing to work with those developers to move their projects forward. And then a big area of focus working with CEDA and the Housing Advisory Committee is in anticipation of the TID 4 housing funds to come in 2023 is how do we focus on that multifamily redevelopment, rehab, revitalization on that stock. That was one of the kind of the third tracks in our housing plan that was approved in 2019. We're going to continue to focus on the North Fish Hatchery Road visioning and then also continuing with the neighborhood plan, both South Stoner Prairie and Greenfield as the planning department moves forward with those. So then switching over to some significant kind of budget changes there. Did we lose that section, Misty?
Just got to scroll. You got a lot going on.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. A couple of things there. We increased our hotel room tax budget estimate this year up to about $420,000. That's 80% of the high year, which was in 2019. So in consultation with our tourism partner, the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor Business Bureau, we feel comfortable with that number based on where room night hotel generation is moving forward here. We are going to update our stock of promotional items. And then one of the larger light items that I'm requesting is the Buxton software, which is a marketing data analytics software that would be funded a little bit by TID number 13, TID number 10, and then CEDA. And what this does is it provides us with marketing, demographic, retail information on those specific retailers and maybe how Fitchburg might match up with those as we try and attract more retail, commercial, shopping, restaurant businesses to Fitchburg. We used to use an old program that's not available to us anymore, but this technology is really geo-analytical driven by all the pings from our cell phones and all the technology that we have there. And it's something that I'd like to try for a year or two and see if it delivers some results for us, not only in North Fish Hatchery Road, but uptown, and then hopefully on the Shea property as we work with them and have a comprehensive development plan come forward across from Super Target. So I tried to break it down to a manageable level by working on those three funding sources. Then the other thing that we have is $25,000 in both the Affordable Housing Fund and $25,000 in the regular housing fund for consulting services. As we continue to have the conversation with the Housing Committee and with CETA, we're probably going to need some assistance to help us define what those programs should be based on checking in with those two committees and also the Finance Committee, Planning, and the Council to figure out what should our programs be for that new infusion of money that'll be coming from TID 4, specifically kind of focused more on that multifamily housing, not only, again, redevelopment, revitalization, but maybe also some new housing stock units in that portfolio as well. So I think that covers the highlights. Our traditional economic development budget really doesn't change much. The CETA budget is contingent upon the room tax revenue projection that we put in there. And if we don't receive that money, if it comes in lower, then we don't spend it on the line items that we've identified there. And then the housing fund is really driven by the TID increment. And again, thanks to the council for utilizing that tool both for TID 6 and TID 4. This is the first time we're going to have some real money to be able to utilize to implement our housing plan and some of the housing needs in our community. So thank you for your support of that. I think I covered everything. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mike. Questions? Yes, Alder Gerhardt.
Thanks. Hi, Mike. Thanks so much. I just had a quick question. I think you just answered it, but I just wanted to double check. Okay. I'm looking at page 124 of the budget, and so that's under the CETA section. And I just wanted to clarify that all these line items, they come out of the hotel room tax portion that the city receives?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to double check.
Even the one, Gabriella, the line item 390 there, which is the 70% that goes to our tourism entity, the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor Business Bureau. That's all contingent upon the revenue, coming in.
Great.
So that's not a specific line item. It'll be contingent upon where the revenue comes in.
Great. Thanks.
Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Okay. One last thing I'll mention in a kind of a preview to 2024, you'll probably see me requesting a housing finance specialist position. So just wanted to put that out there as we develop these programs. We're going to need additional staff capacity and expertise to kind of manage those going forward. So just get ready for anticipating a housing finance specialist request in 2024.
Alder Gerhardt.
Sorry, I guess I have one follow-up question that just occurred to me. So going back to page 121, all of the economic development expenses here, I'm curious about the difference between funding it through this fund versus the hotel room tax revenue source. Is there a rule around what we can spend our hotel tax money on, or is there a reason why these particular items are coming out of this fund versus the ones that are coming out of the CETA fund?
Well, I'll start, and then maybe Misty wants to chime in as well. The 15670, that's the Economic Development Fund. When I first started with the city, that was kind of the budget that we established in those line items there. Historically, that really hasn't changed all that much, other than probably for salaries and administration there. But it's maintained pretty level over the last couple of years here. It wasn't until we were able to secure our first hotel, which it's now the Wyndham Garden Place, but it's the Quality Inn and Suites, that we could have the hotel room tax fund. By state statute, 70% of the dollars that we collect from hotel room tax have to be used for tourism, promotion, and marketing related purposes. And that's why we have our partnership and contract with the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor Business Bureau as our tourism entity, and then CETA administers the other 30%. But even out of the 30% for CETA, there's some of our wages for both Joyce and my salaries are covered by the room tax dollars for some of the promotion and marketing activities that we participate in and perform for the city here. So I think we're trying to strike that balance, but we appreciate the commitment from the general fund with that traditional kind of nuts and bolts economic development, which was the original kind of position that we started with.
Mind if I expand?
Go ahead, yes.
So the laws around how you spend room tax have changed in the last 5 or so years. So that 70% that what Mike was talking about, 70% of it has to go to a designated tourism entity, which we decided was the chamber. That other 30%, we can do whatever we want with it. So a lot of communities will just put that money as a revenue in the general fund and have everything come out of the general fund. Here in Fitchburg, we've made the policy decision to let CETA control the bulk of that 30, actually all of that 30%, and then whatever is left is in the general fund. So that's a policy decision that Fitchburg has made in the past.
And let me ask, sorry if you'll indulge me for a second, let me ask this. So if we have extra revenue at the end of the year from that hotel tax room, is that placed into a special part of the general fund that's still allocated to CETA, or is that?
So the room tax is split, so the 70% that we have to give to the chamber is in the CETA fund. And then I think it's 23% of it is in CETA fund for CETA's use. And then 7% of it goes to the general fund to pay for administration. So my staff's costs, all of that stuff. So that 23%, if there's extra money there, that stays in CETA, and they have different fund balance categories that they track.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You as well. Yes, we'll circle back to Deanna. Yes, looks like you are online, so Deanna, the floor is yours. We'll try this again. Are you on mute? She might be. I'm not sure. Deanna, are you on mute? There you go.
Hi, can you all hear me now?
We can, yes.
Okay, good. I apologize. Am I a little bit clearer now?
Yes, you are. Yeah, very good. Go ahead.
Okay. I apologize. So I was just going to point out that our major new initiative for 2023 is the South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan and the Greenfield Neighborhood Plans. For the planning department budget, there are no significant changes that you will see. I did request a little bit more money for publications and dues and training, just to kind of reflect some of the changes with inflation. But otherwise, no significant changes in the planning department budget. And Misty, if you would like to take us over to H&I and sustainability. So H&I and sustainability is also under the planning department's supervision, and so the team has continued to work on the hub phase 1, and as it's already been noted, that is in the design, final design for hopefully bidding in early of next year. Phil in our department has been working with the bicycle committee and working on improving bicycle safety and hopefully getting Fitchburg to the gold status of bicycle friendly communities. So he's been working with B-Cycle. We recently were notified that the city has been awarded a $300,000 grant from Wisconsin DOT for the phase 2 of the B-Cycle expansion. So very, very pleased with that. Phil is also overseeing 7 trail counters to keep track of who and the numbers of bikers and when they are using the city's trail. Phil has also been continuing the energy reporting, and you might have noticed that in the spreadsheet that we've provided, the overall solar energy generation, it continues to edge up for the city. Phil is also participating in the Green Chair Legacy community. And finally, the team continues to work with the HNI committee. We're working with the HNI grant program and also neighborhood navigators. New initiatives for 2023, Phil has already identified in the 2020 budget is the funds for the sustainability plan. Phil hopes to get that RFP out hopefully later this year or early next year for a sustainability plan for the city and additional work on bicycle-friendly community status. So no significant budget increases, and we've moved some of the supplies for the neighborhood navigator to a slightly different account, but otherwise everything is pretty much the same for the sustainability and H&I budget. And if there's any questions, I can certainly try to answer them.
Very good, Deanna. Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Yes, Alder Gerhardt, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Deanna. Quick question about the significant budget changes under sustainability. Can you just clarify what the one-time projects from 2022 not included in 2023? I assume those funds will still be rolled over.
Why don't I take that one?
Yes. Okay.
No, go ahead, Deanna, if you're ready.
The sustainability plan was one of those, and maybe Misty knows something else, but we would intend to roll over the funds for the sustainability plan, which we're still working on the RFP. Great.
And was there discussion about, because the original discussion about the sustainability plan, I think pre-2022 budget was it would potentially be 2 phases, like one phase in 2022 and then one phase in 2023. Was there any discussion about adding some additional funding for that initial RFP?
Not for this particular RFP. At this point, our discussions at the staff level has just been, let's get this particular part of the sustainability plan put together and see where the results are, and then maybe ask for some additional funding in a later budget.
I would add just that the sustainability phase 2, I guess I'll call it, was included in the ARPA and TID closure investment plan, but that's where the mayor alluded to. We had more projects identified than funding available. So I don't believe that made it into the 2023 budget, but we'll go through the update of the investment plan in the future.
Great, thanks.
All right, very good. Additional questions? Yes, Alder Rada-Frada, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question in the account 210 on page 113. So the professional services went down from $77,000 to almost $3,000. Why?
I am assuming that one of those costs were the sustainability plan. And maybe, Misty, you can help me out on that one.
Absolutely. So those are those one-time projects that were included in 2022 that, since they are one-time, dropped off of 2023 budget. And I'm just pulling up the 2022 budget to identify what they were specifically. The sustainability plan was one of them. I believe that was $25,000. If you give me a second, I can get it. So the three things that were one-time projects in 2022 is 20,000 for Hub Phase 2 concept refinement, 30,000 for teen center feasibility study, and 25,000 for sustainability planning. So those three amounts added together is what that drop was. And so, yes, similar to what Gabriella was suggesting, is if those projects aren't completed in 2022, they will be submitted for carryover request that council will see in March, so that the projects can still continue in '23.
Okay. I thought that the teen center also has for 2023 another component feasibility study. So that one was removed.
So the mayor talked about that in his mayor's letter.
Yeah.
With Hub Phase 1 not being done until 2024 and still working on some of the other phases that was delayed.
When you see delay, you say it's delayed. Can we see in the budget where it was delayed to when?
So the budget process only talks about 1 year.
So we don't know when you say delay, it could be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, or never.
It would be council's discretion as you do future budgets, or this budget, if you wanted to put an amendment for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Very good. Deanna, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
And
have a nice evening, everyone.
You as well. Thank you. Moving on. Next on the agenda is the Senior Center budget. Jill McHone, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Let's see. We'll start with our accomplishments in 2022. We are working with, and I continue to work with Dane County to make sure that the funding that we get for case management and for nutrition gets changed over to the city of Fitchburg in 2023. They didn't reallocate any funds this year just because it was the last 2 months, but hopefully we'll see a small increase for taking on the town of Madison. The second one connects with that too, just working with Newbridge, who does all the case management for those clients, and communicating with them pretty regularly, more so now. At least 2 of my staff participated in all the town of Madison outreach activities. And then we were just at Novation Commons, the senior apartments, this week to do our own meet and greet and beginning to let the residents know what will be available to them in a month. We worked on a new marketing plan and we were able to translate our marketing brochure into Spanish. Thanks, Julia, for looking that over as well. So we now have that. We got a second bus from Dane County. I advocated pretty strongly for that. I'm always advocating for transportation, but thanks to ARPA funding, we have this second bus through 2023, but then it goes away. I was just at the Dane County Specialized Transportation meeting this last week to talk about what to do when that funding goes away. And we go back to one bus because we easily are taking between 12 to 15 riders every single day. And when we take on town of Madison, there's just not going to be enough time to get people where they need to go. So always looking for ways to increase transportation. Just developing relationships with the new apartments. I know Mike had mentioned some. The Limerick is open now, and we actually have a couple clients that are moving in. Like I said, we were up at Novation Commons. We'll be going to the luncheon for the opening of the Quarry Ridge. So continue to build those relationships to make sure they know what services are available. Developing the plan to install a patio. And starting the fundraising campaign. I'm happy to report today we reached 38,000 of the 50, so that's not so bad. Our goal was to get to 50 in a month. We're not quite there, so I'm happy to extend that fundraising. And proud to say that 24,000 came from participants and clients or users of the senior center in the community, 14,000 so far from businesses. So I feel proud that we've built those connections that people in 1 month's time wanted to donate to this project. With the addition of the part-time social worker that we're sharing with the police department, we did a lot of moving around and changed some rooms around. And so now The social workers, case managers are located near the front of the building by the receptionist office, which has worked out really well and allowed us to have more room in the back. And then, as I just spoke about, we're piloting that shared social work position. Sarah Folkers took that on, and so far I think it's going really well. I'm sure the police can speak to it from their point of view, but I think from our point of view or mine, it's a nice shared position because there's a lot of overlap between ages and mental health and things like that. So Sarah is able to make a lot of referrals for folks, and sometimes they're older adults too. So I think for us, it's a win-win. New initiatives for 2023, just continue building those relationships now with other apartment complexes in the town of Madison, not just the senior apartment complex. I feel like there's a lot of older adults. Newbridge, there wasn't a lot of outreach to that part of Madison for Newbridge. And I think that there's going to be a lot of older adults that are very pleased to know that there's services and hopefully transportation available to them. And again, as I always talk about, is transportation. I am a little concerned how that's going to play out. That was the big question from the folks at the senior apartment complex was, what kind of transportation is available. So keep advocating for an increase in transportation. And then hopefully begin and complete the construction of the patio. So budget changes. I think you might see a lot of departments had their fuel reclassed. I'm hoping to, the digital signing, Misty can speak to that because that kind of got added after. And then increasing the LTE instructor hours. So those are our exercise instructors, and we're finding that there's a need to offer more, and it's pretty cost effective to offer it with the LTEs versus bringing in an independent contractor. And even though they're LTEs, I always can be sure, or I can reassure you that we bring in the 20% that's required by the city. And so I'd like to be able to increase those hours so we can offer new fun classes that might strike our fancy, like cardio drumming was kind of a new class that we decided we wanted to offer, and we were able to train an instructor with some memorial funds that someone had given us, so it didn't cost the city anything. And now we're offering that cardio drumming class using one of the LT instructors. So I'd like the ability to have a bigger pool of hours to offer more programs. So this is another one of my new proposals that I put in. And I understand this is, budgets are hard and everybody needs staffing. And I've been, our department's been really lucky to get the support that we've had over the years. But I'm really starting to think ahead here. And a nutrition site coordinator is something I think that our department is going to need. Years and years ago, we always had a 25-hour position for a nutrition site manager. And that's all they did was work in the kitchen and deal with the meals. And then when he had the volunteer coordinator position, it started out at 10 hours and then it bumped up, and we just decided it would be best to merge those two positions because a lot of what the volunteer coordinator does is deal with drivers and kitchen helpers and that sort of thing. So looking ahead, it's getting a lot busier with the meals. I think we were at our highest, we were close to maybe 14,000 meals in a year. We're building back up after COVID, but it's a lot to manage the meal program now. Oh, thanks, Misty. Total. 13, 12. So anyway, we're seeing an increase and we're going to get back there again. But, having someone that's dedicated and paid to be in the kitchen overseeing volunteers is really going to be more necessary. We've got the 5 routes now. So that's 5 different drivers per day. We're going to need 6 different drivers a day, and managing those schedules and dealing with feedback. The drivers come back and say, so-and-so wasn't there, or this happened, or we had to leave the meal here, or there's a lot of different information that flows through the kitchen. And so I think that this is going to be a position that I'll continue to put in because I believe we're going to need to have just a dedicated nutrition site coordinator to deal with the volunteers and all the county reporting that has increased over the years. So those were my two new proposals. Well, the third one, I thought I only got two, but if indeed, part two, thanks. If indeed we got 25-hour-a-week nutrition site manager coordinator, we could then create a whole new position or expand the current volunteer position into a citywide volunteer manager. This is something I've talked about for years to different administrators. Primarily, they would be working for the senior center, but they would be a conduit for all departments for the city. If new residents came to City Hall and asked, I want to get involved, what opportunities are there? This would be the person they would go to if they wanted to plant trees, if they wanted to work in the parks, those kind of things. I think I've always believed in the advantages of volunteering, not just for us, but for the community itself. It builds a sense of community and ownership. I think that's why we were able to raise $24,000 just by our own people that see the value in what we do, and having a full-time volunteer manager for the city. I think it builds community connections. I think there's a revenue source to be had there too. When you start to build community connections and people feel committed, they oftentimes will donate to projects that are near and dear to their heart, like the patio. Also to this position, as all departments have grown, we do a lot of social media, we do a lot of marketing, we're doing a lot of stuff online, a lot of things that just kind of get plopped into other positions, job descriptions, as we kind of grow, just like everybody else. It's just kind of a growing pain. So this is another position that I like to talk about and think it would be really beneficial to the city to kind of think about something like that.
Very good.
Okay.
Questions from the committee? I see Alder Wheeler's hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is more of a comment. Jill, I just want to compliment you and your staff for the work that you do at the senior center. So it seems like your employees have a lot of fun, and just the fact that you are able to raise that amount of money in a month is outstanding. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I'll pass that along to staff as well. We do have a lot of fun.
Other comments, questions? Seeing none. Jill, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Moving on, the next item on our agenda is the library budget. And Wendy Rawson, you are on. Yes, I do see you. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for having us tonight. Just the opening caveat that we always give about the library budget, and Misty can jump in here if she would like to make any corrections. We're a little bit unique from other departments in that we are not part of the general fund. We are a separate fund. So essentially the appropriation that is given to the library is then managed by the library board. So under state statute, they are responsible for distributing those funds, which I think kind of changes things a little bit. Do you want to add anything there, Misty?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is, especially in the last handful of years, we have an unwritten agreement that the amount that the levy for the library goes up is based on either the threshold for expenditure restraint or the threshold for levy limits, whichever is less. So it's not like we say you have to stay flat or just we pick a number out of the air. There's at least some sort of a methodology that's used. And then, like she mentioned, the mayor and the mayor's budget decides how much that is, and then library board has the authority to decide how they want to spend it in totality.
All right, so looking at the significant accomplishments from 2022, obviously the biggest one is that we hired a new outreach librarian. So we have Minda Maurer on board now. She is doing a fantastic job. So she held pop-up libraries this summer in 6 different area parks. She also attended the Fun in the Park events at Southdale that we talked about a little bit at Committee of the Whole last week. Things have been going really well. She is continuing to do some outreach kind of in the off season. Summer is definitely when she's going to be busiest, but she's got book club at the cafe, going at Barrique's, and is looking to coordinate with the schools to do some more things. So we're very excited to have her on board. We returned to in-person programming. Feels like we never left it now, but that was kind of a big deal. So post-pandemic, getting back to having people come to programs, which I think was great for the staff. It's not quite as much fun to do story time if you're looking at a screen and not at little faces. So that has gone well. We installed the print management system back in January, February. Prior to this, we were on the honor system for printing and copying. And I think this has gone really well. So now patrons can use coins, dollars, and credit cards to pay for printing and copying. And we've got a steady income coming in from that, which is very much appreciated. We did a couple of smaller building projects. We added display shelving in the holds area to kind of highlight our new and lucky day items and to give our holds a little bit more space. And then we have ordered new picture book shelves. We are looking to increase the size of the picture book collection and to make that easier for patrons to find, easier for us to get back on the shelf quicker. Coming up in 2023, this is a huge one. We are purchasing and installing a new automated materials handling system. This is what we call a sorter. It's hooked up to the drive-up book drop, processes all of our returns, most of them in real time, so it'll check it in and sort it. So it is, really instrumental in how we handle backroom operations. We created our staffing plan based on having this piece of equipment. It's by far the biggest, I think, library expense that we'll have in the building. So we're very excited about that. Things have changed a lot since we installed ours 11 years ago. So we're very excited to see all the new things that it can do. We are looking to increase the collection size to meet the Dane County Library Standard because of the growth of Fitchburg and how fast that's happening, partially because of the town of Madison, but partially just because Fitchburg is growing. Our requirements by county standard are increasing. I am on a committee to look at those to see if the standards that we're currently using are still the best way to do things. And I think we might make some changes. But that's partly why this is on here. We are also going into the last year of our strategic plan. So we've got a number of different work groups looking at different things that we can do in this last year. Changes from 22 to 23. So we reclassified leases. This is a copier lease. We moved that from one account to another. We eliminated library fines. So this is something that has gone down drastically since we eliminated fines, I believe, in 2018, but not every library in the system had done that. So we were still accepting fines for other libraries, but I believe we're, at least in Dane County, almost completely fine free. So we're just going to take that completely out of the revenue. And I added another $10,000 for the final year strategic plan implementation. So we typically do $10,000 in a supply account for that. And I added another $10,000 into the furniture account. I'm not entirely sure where we're going to use that, but we are looking at perhaps doing an area in the youth department for tweens. We have a great teen area, but we don't really have a place for tweens. So that's something we're considering. Nothing is final yet.
Wendy, do you mind if I jump in quick and mention that was funded by fund balance or your equipment replacement fund? It's not like it's coming out of the levy.
Yes, as is the materials handling system. I should have mentioned that. Thank you. We don't have any new proposals this year. I just want to take a minute to talk about the pay plan improvement. The library is benefiting from that a lot. We have a lot of staff that are kind of in the lower end of the pay plan. So the new pay plan is going to boost a lot of people, and that's great. Super happy about that. It also affects our shelvers, so they're on the LTE schedule, so they're going to be up to $15 an hour, which is amazing. We're really happy about that. It was a lot to absorb into this budget, and I had to shave a lot of other places that I didn't really want to in order to make it fit. So very thankful, happy it's happening, would highly recommend we not wait 8 years to do it again, so that it's not such a significant amount to try to absorb. And I'm sure the same issues are happening in the general fund. So that's all from me. Does anybody have questions?
I see no questions. Wendy, you covered everything. Great. Very good. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Moving on. Next on the list is Parks and Recreation. Scott Endel.
Good evening. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks for the time and the opportunity. I would start with the Parks Department in regards to significant accomplishments. Just to mention a few here. Continuing to work on the Fahey Fields Park Plan. This year we are actually, Jordan is excavating for our new playground this week, and we also did add some path lighting on the east-west connection from the current McGaw Park to the Fahey Fields development. Anna continues to work on the woods management plan for S. Johnson. We also are scheduled to update our playground at Hillside Heights. The hope is to get that completed by the end of the year. We are currently in the process of updating our park and open space plan, the 2015 plan. And then one of our bigger projects is we constructed, or with the help of a lot of others, constructed the inclusive playground at McKee Farms Park. So that was a big project. In regards to initiatives, it's been mentioned tonight, we're continuing to work on the North Fish Hatchery Hub project with, again, hopefully bidding occurring in early 2023, an award and then completion of construction in the spring of 2024. We are currently working on a small scale egg park plan for Terra Vesa. So we're currently doing that, and we did include some potential implementation items of that plan for 2023. Stoner Prairie Park master plan continues to be developed with the hope of beginning to implement that in 2023. Southdale, certainly with the addition of the Southdale Park, we've got some CIP items for that in 2023. McKee Farms Park basketball court, Clayton Road playground update, and as the mayor did note, I did have on the list for 2023 the Tower Hill Park shelter renovation, but that's been delayed for a couple of years. So that's that. Significant budget changes with the town of Madison being absorbed. Basically, it's the Southdale operational expenses that we've got included in the budget for $13,500. We are looking to potentially increase the community center rental fees. We're in need of replacement of some equipment there, so it's only natural that we would try to recoup some of that equipment expense through additional revenue of the renters who utilize the facility. We did increase the fence repair item from $5,000 to $10,000 to continue to try to maintain all of the different fences that we have in our athletic fields. $5,000 for security camera repairs. And then one of the new proposal for the Parks Department, and actually it does flow through the Public Works Director. This is the lead maintenance worker for the Parks Division. So that's the new proposal for the parks. And if we're good with that, though, I'll keep rolling with the recreation budget.
One moment, Scott. We do have a question from Alder Gerhardt.
Should I ask it now? This is about the section we just covered. Or you want me to wait till after rec?
No, I think we can go here.
Okay.
Ask the question, we won't have to circle back.
Great, thank you. Hi, Scott. I was just want to ask about the median mowing and maintenance increase. I'm curious because my recollection was that we had a 3-year contract with them that we signed sometime
That's
in the.
correct. This is the third year. There was an escalator in the resolution, so this is the third year amount, the 94,250.
Okay, and then do you think that this is this 2023 is the final year of that contract?
It is, Gabrielle. I might add that we did not include additional. If you're familiar, there's some additional medians on Rimrock in the town of Madison that we're probably going to be adding to the mowing contract, but we're comfortable that with the escalator clause in the current 3-year contract that we're going to have enough dollars in there to absorb those medians. But go ahead. Yep.
Okay, and I assume that we're thinking ahead to 2024 and the likely increase in those services again, or would you ever consider bringing that service in-house?
Well, I that's a good point, Gabrielle. It's getting to the point now where these median contracts were back in the day. This work was performed by the park maintenance staff, but a way to kind of bridge to get the work done was to include the contractual services in the 290 for this work. But now when we're beginning to start to get to the 94, 250, is it a good time now to, maybe reallocate those dollars to full-time staff? I will tell you that, I think what we would need to do prior to that is to contract our current contractors to determine how many hours it does take them to maintain these facilities. It's quite a job, and we continue to, add landscapes and medians and those, and maybe at the end of the day, contracting it out is more cost effective. But certainly, it is time to take a look to see if it is, maybe more cost effective to have internal staff do it.
Okay, thanks.
I have one question, Scott, regarding the rental fees increase. Was that how was that determined? Or have you some type of cost analysis or rental analysis based on other municipalities? Or
no, it really what we do, Randy, is we look at our expenses, if you would.
Sure.
Then determine what our expenses are, and then do the fees accordingly. But I guess what we're saying here is that there are some operational expenses incurred, just wear and tear, and just like the park shelter rental fees and recreational fees. We're feeling that the renter of the facility, who is causing the wear and tear, if you would, should begin to start to help pay for those additional replacement of the equipment. I will tell you that I know Chad Siegel is. We're working. There may be an opportunity with leftover operating budget dollars from 2022 to try and begin to start to purchase some of these items. But the overall, methodology is that we need to increase to try to cover our expenses, but along with the replacement of the chairs and tables, if you would.
Sure. So it's pretty simple, the cost versus the expense.
It really is. Certainly we'll talk about the cemetery later on, but that's another thing that we can talk about when we get there, but it's a little bit different maybe for the cemetery.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Additional questions? Alder Arada has a question.
Yes, Misty, for you. Yes. Misty. On page 162, there is that park fee after law change, Fund 203. So what I am understanding reading this is, so this is in 2023, this is how much we are going to invest on those park using park improvement fee, or or park fee in lieu of land dedication. This is how I am reading that.
Correct.
Okay.
So we have a Fund 202, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
before the law change, which does not have a clock
Yeah, yeah.
associated with how fast we can spend it. And then we have Fund 203 that does have a clock. So all of these things that are in here came over from the CIP. They were things that were planned. And then when we were putting the budget together, we are choosing to spend the most restricted money first because there is that clock. So that's why we put it here. And then Scott and I worked together to figure out which particular
Okay.
development would pay for which particular projects. But all of these dollar amounts are from the CIP.
Okay, I have another question. For the Southdale Park, I know that there is a balance. We didn't put anything in the CIP to do for the Southdale Park.
I think that's in 202.
Yeah.
No? Maybe it's next year or 2024. I'll look into that.
Okay.
I hope I didn't miss it. I'll look.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I might, I'd probably mention it later on, but CIP 6266 is really a nice roadmap to if you look at the 202 and 203 accounts, there's a lot of them there, but the CIP 6266 really kind of gives direction to the projects that we're going to be working on in the next, couple, 3, 4, 5 years.
Very good, Scott. Thank you. You may continue on.
Recreation Department. One change that we did, it was we have it under significant accomplishments. Is if you recall, Chad and the rec team, they restructured the park shelter rental fees from a 5-tier system, which was pretty complicated, to a 2-tier system. And I will report that the revenues are pretty much the same with the 2 different systems. So that's good to hear. I know with CC on staff, we're continuing to increase our social media contacts and platforms and printed flyers and those kinds of things. We did CC created a park shelter reservation guide, reviewed and updated the content on the web pages, and actually we did, CC did add a specific pickleball court page at McGaw with the new pickleball courts. Created online summer program brochure, which is we're really finding that the majority of our customers are doing everything electronically, and it really is a nice marketing tool that they can go right there and find all the different offerings. We offered some pickleball lessons at the new courts and those kinds of things. Significant changes, reclassified leases for various accounts. I don't know exactly what that is.
That's just an account number structure thing. So nearly every department has it. You can skip that one.
Very good. Thank you.
We know Julio was going to ask. So
we're contributing to the digital signage budget. And the big new proposal for the rec department is a restructuring of the officials, the referees that Chad gets to run his programs. And it really was a budget neutral adjustment, but it did allow us to get to a $30 per game rate for the referees, which we're hoping that is going to continue to. We have difficulty at times, but just like everything else, we're hoping that that's going to attract some officials for the recreational programs. And then I know on my list is the park fee budget. And again, I think we kind of spoke about that. We do have, the comprehensive list of the 203s and 202s as Misty explained. And as I did mention, the CIP 6266 really kind of gives a summary of the park projects that we're going to be working on the next couple of 4 or 5 years. The cemetery, we do have a cemetery, and that is another, the cost to maintain and operate the cemetery is we certainly bring in more revenue than it does cost us operational wise. But in fairness, the plot fee has been the same since I've been here, so that's been quite a while. So it certainly merits a take a look at our neighboring communities, and certainly we don't want to outprice our customers, but it certainly merits a comprehensive look at that rate, and there may end up being a slight increase to the purchase of a cemetery plot. And with that, I'll take any questions that anyone may have.
We do have a question, Alder Gerhardt.
Thanks so much, Scott. In terms of recreation question, I know we've talked about the fact that we have some scholarships available for people for rec programs. Am I correct in that?
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have a specific line item budget for that, or how do we handle that impact?
I can handle that one. So that is tracked through our grants and donations fund, Fund 200. And so all the money that's been collected is there, as well as an expense for any amount of those scholarships that we offer. And then at the bottom of that number sheet, it shows how much is remaining in that scholarship fund. And that carries over year after year.
So we have a specific amount of money in the scholarship fund currently?
Correct. I can get to that page and show you.
Okay.
What is the GL account?
200 is the fund.
And I'm also curious, do we offer any scholarships last year? I assume we track that.
That'll be on here too.
Okay.
So this is the numbers page for Fund 200. So you can see there's kind of two sets of numbers. The first set of number on this sheet is the project number. So there's a specific project for recreation scholarships. That's number 5520. And then there's the revenue and the expense on both sides. So if I look at the page 44. So the scholarships last year we did not. The year before we did not, but in 2019 we had about $500, $1,400, and $300, kind of going backwards. And then the balance remaining, I guess that we expect to have remaining as of the end of 2022 is 19,000. Currently we have just shy of 19,000 year to date, June 30.
Do we ever contribute additional to that fund, or is that just...
So it was mostly funded through donations from participants. So when you sign up, I'm sorry, Scott, do you want to take this one? I'm kind of jumping in here.
No, you got it, Misty.
Sure. So, so when a family signs up for a class or a person signs up for a class, there's a checkbox that says that they do or do not want to contribute towards the scholarship fund, and then it's tracked separately through this fund.
And is that box still on registrations?
When I signed up my kids last, it was. So
Thank you. Did you contribute?
I do not recall. I know I paid the credit card fee, but I don't remember if I contributed.
And you know what? That brings up, it is, a bit, if we don't distribute any scholarships, I think we need to take a look at that scholarship program, and maybe it's time to take a comprehensive look at that and see if.
Scott, you can do now with the Southdale area. Maybe you can offer some scholarship to the kids there for next summer to promote those. Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking, Julia. Maybe what I do is I bring to the park commissioner our current policy, and and this might be another initiative. Certainly with Southdale, but all of our other healthy neighborhoods, and we're really trying to. Start to do some outreach programs and those kinds of things. So I'll put that on our list of things to take a look at.
Yeah, I think it's something to keep in mind too for future budgets. If we do start spending down that fund, which I hope we do, we should use that money to fund scholarships. Think about how we want to keep that fund up, or maybe it will be self-sustaining with donations from participants. But just think on that for future years, because 19,000 I think is fine for going into the next couple of years, I would think, but yeah.
But I'd like to get that distributed.
Agreed.
Additional questions?
Misty, this is maybe nothing related to that, but with the leases, does the city need to follow the lease standard?
Correct.
Are you using a software to do that?
So we'll talk about that tonight in my budget.
Okay,
Hoping
because I
to-
have an idea.
All right. Additional questions, discussion? Hearing none. Thank you, Scott.
Likewise. Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.
You as well.
Thanks.
All right. Next on the agenda, Public Works. City Engineer Bill Balke. You have the floor.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
All right. Yeah, Public Works, we're here for the evening tonight. That includes streets engineering, parks operations, building maintenance, and all the utilities as well. So significant accomplishments for Public Works this year is that we did introduce a pavement marking program to increase the safety on our streets. We came up with a pavement management program so that we're objectively rating our streets and providing information to which streets need to be paved based upon our data that we've collected. We're doing non-structural vehicle repairs. We're evaluating it at least for the police department's vehicles that are going to be purchased. We're planning for new vehicle maintenance. We actually purchased the lift for the maintenance facility, and we're looking at the tools that would be needed to support additional vehicle maintenance. We procured bids to replace our fleet heavy equipment lift and did that. So this year, we're looking to complete the first phase of the sign retro reflectivity program, which replaces about, I think it's 1/7 of our signs or 1/13 of our signs every year based upon a zone area. And then we're looking to increase our public works staff training for FEMA and NIMS training, emergency management, and coordinating that with the emergency management director. And then we're assisting with the hub phase 1 design, as well as the library chiller replacement. New initiatives for 2023, we're going to be, hopefully the new director will be researching and recommending an asset management program for all of our assets within the city, so that we can use that data and report metrics in a transparency, increased transparency. We're looking to secure bids for design and construction of the salt storage shed. We have proposals right now for how to rehab it, and then replacement costs as well. So we're evaluating that through the end of the year, and then next year we'll be making that decision on whether to replace or to rehab the existing salt shed. We're going to be gathering, it had been planned, I should say, to gather some traffic data along Fish Hatchery and McKee roads to optimize those traffic flows, because we do have adaptive management systems in there, which count the traffic and then change the signal timings based upon how much traffic is there. So when you have more traffic, it can sense that and optimize or increase the time for directions of the flow. And when there's less traffic, it kind of operates so that the traffic can flow through there. Be also implementing a public works safety program. That's something that needs to get updated over the past 5 years. We're going to be doing that next year as well. Significant budget increase. There is a pretty significant increase for the Public Works Department, and it wasn't unforeseen. The fuel purchases were, as Misty mentioned, reclassified into different accounts for better accounting tracking. We added $8,000 to engineering professional services for survey assistance, technical engineering assistance, and miscellaneous inspection services. That's a need that we have when we get some peak times for developments. That we need to get some things done that we can't handle with all of our existing staff. So we increased the professional services for that. We added $60,000 to our street lighting and signal utility costs. This is due to restructuring rate of MG&E and also Town of Madison and new development street lighting. There's an awful lot of street lights that are coming online, and we needed to account for those, as well as the Town of Madison lighting. We added $6,000 to signal maintenance. That was also for the new traffic signals within the town of Madison. $5,600 for computer software for the signal analysis software, and $5,000 for CDL training. One of the provisions that we put into our staffing management plan this year was that we could not find qualified personnel for our that held a CDL that could be hired for our maintenance staff. So we created another tier or pay grade for those that do not have a CDL, with the offer to pay them for the training. And then once they obtain their CDL, they could get moved into a higher pay class with those that do have the CDL right now. So the program that we are proposing for this is that if the staff were to leave within a certain number of years, that they would have to pay back the city a prorated amount to be determined for that training that they received. Added $1,100 for mileage for our engineers. We are on the list for new vehicles or retired police vehicles when they come available, but our staff has requested that they be reimbursed for their mileage, which they currently do not ask for right now. We added $40,000 to roadway supplies, which includes a full year of salt, which we did not purchase in 2022 due to having an overstock in 21. So we had carryover from 21 that carried us through 22, but we will need to purchase that full amount in 2023. We added $17,000 for roadway supplies, which is for street sign replacements, and roadway supplies for additional asphalt for road patching. We've completed probably, I would say, on the order of 24 road repair patches, which we put down some skim coats. We take care of the rutting, some of the shoulder or the edge of the pavements that are falling apart in our rural areas. And in some of those areas that have some drainage issues, we get in there and we put this coating of asphalt in there with our paver that we purchased a few years ago. So we're getting a great benefit out of that. Our staff is doing a great job out there helping to maintain our roads and extend the longevity of them. We added $6,000 for street light maintenance materials due to the increased cost of materials. Poles, steel, et cetera, are all going up in cost. And so we increased our cost for that account. We added $25,000 to road maintenance. Again, in general, road material maintenance increases due to developments and the absorption of the town of Madison. The additional $25,000 also is included for our chip sealing and crack filling program. And then we reclassified one public works maintenance street worker to a lead worker. That's our staffing proposal that we had proposed. We were doing that across the board for all of our public works divisions. So that would be for streets, for utilities, and for parks. So one lead position provided for promotional opportunity, longevity, reward for those that want to take on that additional responsibility, and created a pay grade for that.
Bill, do you want to talk about your second new proposal that was not included?
Yes, we did propose a construction engineer that would coordinate a lot of the construction projects that we have over the next 5 to 7 years in our CIP. We have a significant number of projects that are coming on board that will require consulting out of a project engineer. Those costs range anywhere from $120,000 to $300,000 per project, just for the one engineer that would oversee those projects out on site. The construction engineer that we had proposed would assist with giving updates, attending business meetings, preparing punch lists, being the coordination for those projects. And as we had mentioned, that we do consult that out right now, and this was not included in the budget for this reason.
You know, as we enter in this weekend against St. Thomas, we'll keep the same rotation going on here and let.
Hello?
Hello.
The body of work
we're getting some cross
through this,
cross feed here. So Funny how that just kicks in. Anything further, Bill?
No, that's our public
Yeah,
works,
but
highway operations, for now, engineering.
We do have some questions, so go ahead, Alder Gerhart. Mm-hmm.
Hi, Bill. Thanks so much. Question for you about road salt. My understanding is that we also do some salt brining and some other kind of strategies to reduce the amount of salt we use. Is that correct? And is that part of that salt budget?
That's correct. Yeah, we do have a line item in there for brine that we purchased from the county, as well as some other supplemental materials that go into the brine to make it more effective. So yes, we do brine, and it has cut our salt usage down. I would say on the order of 25% of what it could be without the brine.
Wow.
The brine, as you know, just makes it more effective, lowers the salt, the temperatures of the ice a little bit so that it melts, and it has reduced what we could be using. But we are looking at, we attend training a couple times a year to learn new ways of distribution. We calibrate our salters to make sure that we're putting down the right application. We put down about half the rate of what the county puts down on their roads. So, but we do keep them safe. So it's not too much and it's not too little.
Thank you.
Way down.
Alder Rada, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yes, so, hi, Bill. My question is for the account 210 on page 178. It's professional services. So I thought that this account, the balance will be higher because I want to understand when we hire some of those consultants to help us with the project, this is a pass-through cost to the developers?
Some of them are, and some of them are related to our just general engineering projects where we need to have a survey completed for a project that we're doing in-house, or a CSM that needs to be done for a street vacation, or something associated with that. An additional review for a traffic analysis that we're performing, just some hours available for consulting for that.
Because, can I continue? Because, it seems like a $10,000 is very low, for professional services for engineer, even though the $8,000, if you divide it up by, assume $250 an hour, so you have only 32 hours of consulting, maybe 30, 40, I don't know. So because I am concerned about next year, because right now we don't have a traffic engineer, we are missing a couple of engineers in public works. So we have the Sain Road and we have Lacey Road project. So I am looking for next year to see if we are going to be short of some consultant, to review this big project. I don't know, the question is, if we hire those professionally, we pass through those costs to the project, or the city absorb that cost? You know what I mean?
Yep. With the capital improvement projects that we have, like Sain Road or Lacey Road, we are able to pass the consulting costs onto that project, into that CIP, and use the funding for that. This would be miscellaneous services beyond what our capital projects are. So we've already accounted for those costs within the capital improvement plan program for Sain Road, for consulting, for the inspection, for the project management, and as well as for Lacey Road.
Okay, makes sense now because.
Okay. Yes, Alder Gerhart, do you have another question? Go ahead.
Thanks. Bill, I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about the lead maintenance worker. I think that's amazing that we're doing that. And you said something, is it one or two shared position across all the different public works and parks, or is it separated by departments? Could you just comment on how many of the lead workers are putting on and how that's going to work?
Sure. This would be a reclassification from our existing maintenance workers. We currently have three divisions, streets and highway, parks, and utility. And we propose that each one of those divisions would have a lead worker assigned to them. And that lead worker would, take on some of the responsibilities of the supervisor that's there, act as a backup supervisor, and then, be a project manager to assist with getting the different projects up and going so that the supervisor doesn't have to go and, run to the store and get the bolts, and organize all those little things. We'll have a project manager, pretty much a lead worker that would take on those responsibilities. They would also, oversee the, like I said, the different projects that we have going on. Right now we have, our streets and highway supervisor. He oversees 9 people. And it's hard to keep track of all those. And so if we could have lead people that, are able to break those groups down further, into a project group, it's just less that the supervisor has to keep track of. And not to say that the supervisor isn't doing their job, but with the city growing, we do need to break that down a little bit further so that we can concentrate on the areas and provide better service. So we have that for our streets and highway. So to keep everything equal between all the divisions, we also proposed a lead worker for the parks division, and then also one for the utility division. All of those would act as those backup to the supervisor and, just oversee these projects and have, specific things that they're working on.
Can I also just add to make sure everybody is clear, this is just a reclassification of a current employee, so they'd be promoted up rather than a new position coming in.
Great. So it's 3 total: 1 streets, 1 utilities, and 1 parks.
Yes.
Great. Thanks, Bill. Thanks for giving us some more information.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Additional questions? Hearing none. Go ahead, Bill.
Where are we at now? Refuse and recycling.
Yes, correct.
We increased our education outreach for the program this year. Ben and Ryan are working on that, as well as Aaron. We've updated our recycling guide. We added the services for the town of Madison residents and did the outreach for that. Installed our surveillance cameras. It's a Flock surveillance camera software to monitor our illegal dumping citations. It automatically reads the license plate for us, so we're able to get a good read on that the first time, and it reduced our staff time significantly and our accuracy on those. And then we installed some security fencing on the perimeter to reduce recyclables from blowing off site and increase the site security if needed. So our initiatives for 2023 is that we will be providing drop-off sites for battery recycling. We'll be bringing that back as an initiative, as well as developing a Spanish language guide for our recycling guide. So those are the 2 things that we have set up for 2023.
Okay. Go ahead.
The significant budget changes from 22 to 23 is the accounting change that Misty had mentioned. We increased our pickup costs per our contract with Pelletieri. We will be beginning negotiations in 24 for a new contract for 25, but starting to look at that right now. We added $40,000 for fuel surcharge costs. That this year is kicking us right now. We didn't anticipate this when we put the budget together last year, so this is a deficit that we are going to have to absorb from the fund balance. And then we removed $36,000 from the drop-off site maintenance and improvements from the operation budget and moved $10,000 into the capital replacement budget for site improvements.
Hey, Bill, do you want to mention quick what the proposed rates are based on the budget?
I don't know. It looks like we are proposing a refuse and recycling rate of $228 and a brush collection, which is for apartments, of $7 per unit.
And I'll add, if I may, so there is dipping into fund balance again, just like there was last year. I know RCC had a conversation about this already. That suggested amount was to keep it just a 3% increase, if I remember correctly. This is a 6% increase, especially with that fuel surcharge. We didn't want to dip that far into the fund balance. So you guys will see a separate resolution coming through soon that will set that actual fee for the garbage charge. And if it's different from what's included in here, there'll be an omnibus amendment to correct that. But staff is recommending 228 based on still using the fund balance, but not quite as much as what RCC had proposed.
28%.
States continue to.
I think it was 6%.
No, but the one that you are going to recommend is 228.
So yes, so we're recommending going from 215 to 228.
Oh.
What was our RCC?
3% ish, going off of memory.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll also say, if I may, I'm sorry, when RCC saw it, I don't believe we had the pay plan numbers all figured out at that point. We didn't have insurance figured out at that point. There are a lot of other variables. So when I saw it, after all those details were figured out, it was a 3% increase. That might have been why there's that discrepancy.
Yeah. Yes, Gabriella.
Yeah, that was what you anticipated my question. That was what I was going to ask. But so this is mostly a pass through from Pelletary. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Additional questions or discussion? Alder Frater, go ahead.
Oh, so Bill, this is a curiosity only. It's on account number 290 on page 195. We are paying like $2,500 for battery recycling. So where we can do that here? I didn't know that we were doing that. So we can bring our battery and the city recycle that? Where is that?
We still have people dropping their batteries off here.
Okay.
Even though we do not accept them, and we have to dispose of them. So we have that in our budget just to take care of the batteries that show up at our place.
Okay, so we are not offering this service to the city, but we had to pay for if they bring the battery here. Okay.
Yes.
So maybe we need to have something to take it to Home Depot.
Yeah, we have we have batteries that are dropped off in our cell phone disposal and our glasses, our glasses disposal and our inkjet disposal recycling. So they just show up.
That's an operational. Somebody will have to volunteer from council.
I say that maybe we should have like a sign there that we don't accept batteries. The closest place is Home Depot because I have battery to dispose, but I had to go to Home Depot and look. Oh, we do it in the city. This is what my question, and no, we don't do it.
All right, Alder Gerhard, go ahead.
Thank you. Bill, we had a conversation about the recycling drop-off site at RCC, and Ben pulled some of the numbers about how much cardboard is being taken away, and it is absolutely mind-boggling. It's like double what it was in 2019, and I know that we put in the license plate recognition. There's just a lot going on there, and obviously I think that probably contributes to the increased rates as well, given how often Pelletary is having to pull away those cardboard trucks. Have we started having discussions about that at the staff level, or is that something that's possibly in the works? Because it seems like that's an issue that we need to start dealing with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we came up with a program, or we're discussing it on a staff level as to how we're going to capture that data that we get from our license plate reader. And on a typical day, I would say anywhere from 120 to 130 people use our site, and to work with the police department, because they're the ones that are going to have to run the license plates and get the information as to where they're coming from. So we are discussing that right now as to where the cardboard's coming from and who's using our recycling area, and we'll have something in place for 23.
Okay, because there's that fine line between it costs us a lot to do that analysis. Maybe it's better just to pay for the extra cardboard. I don't know. There's that. I know the staff is already really overburdened, but it just seems like something that it's just sharply increased, and it's hard to say whether it'd be interesting to find out if other cities are seeing this increase in their drop-off sites, but my guess is that it's not just all Fitchburg residents. We're getting cardboard from around the region.
Is the reader that we budgeted for and it's currently in place, that is correct, it's currently in place, it's just the data is not being analyzed?
Yeah, the cameras can export a spreadsheet as to what the license plate numbers are.
Sure.
And that data needs to be entered into the police system for license plates to determine where those vehicles are coming from.
Is that something, is that a manual operation?
It is, yeah.
Oh. All right, I guess there's more discussion to be had. All right. What do we have? Any additional questions on refuse and recycling? Hearing none. Moving on. Transit. Bill?
Yes, we participated in the 2022 transit redesign and awarded a federal grant to increase the total grant funding of us available to assist with mass transit. As Misty set this up, I haven't even had a chance to look at this one. Maybe you can explain this one.
Sure. So transit previously was in the general fund. We basically paid our net cost to mass transit. This past year sometime, council approved us getting direct financial grants from, I believe, the feds. So we are now showing the full cost of our share of Metro and then getting this money from the feds. So we kind of had to gross it up. That really messes up the expenditure restraint calculation because that total expense is included in that calculation. And it made it a little harder to figure out how much mass transit itself cost us. So we created a separate fund to keep track of the mass transit piece. And so it's a new fund, which is why a lot of the data is incomplete, but it shows that amount grossed up to make it easier to track, especially for grant purposes. Can you do your significant changes still, or do you want me to do?
Sure. No. What we did do, our significant changes was to account for the new route redesign for 2023 and included the additional increase for the town of Madison for that route that we added there.
I have a question.
We do have a question from the council. Alder Rada-Frada, go ahead.
So I want to understand this. So we are going from $620,000 to $1.4 million in traffic expenses in the transit. I am on page 200 and the account 200. Because, there is that it's Madison Metro Transit. It's 2022 $620,000, and then 2023 $1.4 million. So
let's actually, if we could start page up, and then I'll explain that next.
Which?
So on the executive summary, page 199, there's two financial summary boxes. So one is the new fund, Fund 231, and then one is the Fund 100. So we used to do it under the Fund 100, where we would just pay our net share, and the grant money would go to Metro, and we would go to Metro. So we just showed our $502,000 in 2021, and then 2022 budget was $620,000. Now with the new fund, we're showing the total cost of our share of Metro, and the grant money's coming to us. So the net cost of that is reflected in the fund in total. So on the sheet that you're looking at, the 200, the 620 was our net share, and the 1.4 million is our gross share.
So I want to understand this. I don't get it. So the difference is what we pay.
So that's 2022 versus 2023. So not exactly. Go ahead.
So for the just because I dealt with this a lot with Andrew. When
Yeah.
Andrew was here, he decided to look at whether or not we should apply for that funding separate from Madison Metro because we were just getting a pass through. Madison Metro actually, because of the size of the region, gets penalized by the state versus we are a Class B city. We actually get a higher percentage of funding if we apply on our own. So Andrew wanted to look at if it was actually made sense for us to apply for that state aid separately. His determination that it was good. It looks like it is, but it does make expenditure restraint somewhat complicated. So there is some unexpected consequences of it. But that being said, now we're actually finding out what it really costs to run Madison Metro because we're getting the grant money directly to us. So those two numbers really aren't equivalent because that $620,000 in 2022 does not include the grant funding that Madison Metro was applying to us as a municipality.
Okay, so which is the total amount that we pay? I want to know that because these numbers are confusing.
Yep, so if you go to page 60, which is all of the numbers for all of the funds, you can see for 2023, property taxes that are used to subsidize transit is $552,000. That was the $620,000 you're looking at before.
Which page where are you?
Page 60. So then we're expecting a grant of $862,000, $863,000. We have some staff time that we're allowed to charge to that grant, $5,000 or so. And then there's that metro amount that you see. So the actual property tax contribution towards transit went from $620,000 in 2022 to $552,395 in 2023.
So my question is, what is going to happen in the next couple of years? How we're going to pay for this? Because if the grant is gone, from where, no?
It's an annual grant. We can apply annually.
Every year?
Yep.
But in reality, it cost the city $1.4 million to run this. Well, with the grant and everything, if we had to pay the whole thing ourselves, it's going to be $1.4 million to run for the services that we get is $1.4 million. Wow.
And really, it probably was that last year as well. It was just we showed the net amount of the grant that went straight to Metro instead of the grant coming to us. So I think the costs are relatively comparable.
No, but the question is, I get the grant, but the grants are grants. The grant come and go. You know what I mean? It's not like a sustainable revenue for the future that we know that we're going to get forever. You know what I mean? So
my understanding is it's pretty solid. This is something that the state's done. It's very, of course, anything that could leave, but it's not an inconsistent source of grant funding. It's not a one-off. It's something that we have in the past. It has always been applied for. It has always been applied.
It's never been a one-time
Yes,
grant.
it's never been
a continue.
It's a subsidy.
Yes.
It's instead of grant.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there's that other that account through Madison Metro as well. We have that escrow account, which we have a significant amount of funding from ARPA funds that was given to Madison Metro that's been allocated to Fitchburg that can kind of soften the blow for some of those increases over the coming years. Obviously that's a limited amount of money, so there's also that element as well. I actually think this would be a great future conversation. At some point, we're going to have to talk about this more in depth, but I'm happy to. I can share, if anyone's interested, I can share some of the old conversations we've had at Transmission Transit.
Alder Wheeler, yes.
So could this grant or subsidy increase because of population or expanding routes?
Bill, I'll let you take that one because I got them out from you.
Yeah, it's based upon a percentage of the total operating costs, and that's set by the state and the federal government. I think right now it's close to 70%. It varies between 65 and 70%. So it's set by the state and federal government. But yeah, I guess, it's, if our operating costs go up, the grant or the subsidy increases as a proportion of the percentage that we get back.
And historically, you found that to be true, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. I see no further questions, so I believe that concludes your presentation, your report, correct?
Yep.
Nope,
Just for transit. So he's got more sections coming.
All I see is transit.
Bill's got a lot.
Oh, all right, well, continue on. I see transit.
All right. So we're looking at designing our for the water utility now, We're looking at designing the McKee and Tower Hill replacements. We're finished the design for the McCoy Interceptor, which is over at MM and McCoy, which would go to the Nine Springs Rural Capital Development in TID 13. I think it's 12, 10, one of those TIDs. Anyway, design of well 12 is going to be kicked off this year. Tower D, which is over by Highway 14. We are going to be designing and letting a contract. And then we've investigated the Greenfield well system and the new zone that would be fed off of Tower D and how to put that into operation. We did do some major maintenance on well 4 and 11 to repair those when they lost some of the flow capacity that we had there. And we're in the process of pulling well 5 this fall for fall repairs. We began a large meter change-out program, and the cross connection and grease trap inspection program is just about off the ground with our policy right now. Next year, we're looking to construct the McCoy Interceptor, bid and construct the well at Stoner Prairie, bid and construct the water tower at for Highway 14, complete the water system analysis and abandon the well when Tower D comes online, and then complete a unidirectional flow flushing program and construct the water mains along McKee, Tower Hill, and allied neighborhoods. Significant changes is we added the additional utility lead worker in this as a classification, and also we added a new sanitary utility maintenance personnel. The utility supervisor has been evaluating the maintenance programs that we have in place, and due to the increase in size of the city over the years and the amount of maintenance that's required, additional safety and state programs, we need to increase our maintenance on our existing system for both the water and the sewer. Mainly the sewer. We are falling behind in our maintenance on that as far as the amount of area that we're televising or inspecting. And then what that leads to then is increased backflows or sewer backflows into people's homes and claims. So we need to maintain those that we keep on a cleaning plan, and then do the inspections on those. So there's some data in there as to how the city's changed over the past number of years, and how we've pretty much maxed out our technology at this point. We can't do much more with technology. We need the people on the ground to be able to do the maintenance work, given the increase in the size of the city. So we did put this in there for a utility maintenance worker, and this person is funded out of the sewer and the water utility, so it does not come off of the general fund. And this is a position that we really need for this program.
Questions? Seeing none, you may continue on, Bill.
All right. In the stormwater area, we did implement an Adopt a Storm Drain program in our education and outreach, completed inspection in all of our stormwater facilities, performed GIS updates to the stormwater facilities and infrastructure. Our staff is that we have on board now is just flying through it, and we're getting through that one. We did obtain an urban non-point source stormwater management planning grant for the TMDL, and completed a survey of our stormwater infrastructure outside the urban service area. We're consolidating our stormwater management maintenance agreements and notifying all the properties of their responsibilities. So next year, we're going to continue to develop our water quality implementation plan so that we can get a roadmap to the Rock River TMDL compliance. What that means is essentially the study that we're doing this year will tell us where we need to concentrate, or if we need to concentrate additional resources into stormwater maintenance to meet the requirements. And then We're going to be doing a specific site vegetation management plan for all of our stormwater facilities. We did add $2,000 for pond identification signs and education signs. They're starting to fade around our ponds that we have out there right now. We added $500 for public notices, and then $56.50 for computer-related expenses due to AutoCAD Civil 3D licensing and a tablet for field work documentation. We added $700 for a concrete certification testing. All of our technicians are cross-trained so that not only do they do stormwater, but they are cross-trained in inspection for development, so they can do water, sewer, storm, streets, and concrete testing is one of those things that is required in the development world for inspection. And we added $23,000 to equipment expenses to account for general equipment maintenance. All right.
Yeah. Questions? Alder Gerhard.
A couple of questions for you, Bill. Number one, in terms, I'm really excited about the native vegetation management plan for stormwater for next year. Do you know if we're looping Anna Healy into that as our naturalist in the city?
Definitely.
Okay. And then I guess my second question is the rates for stormwater. Those rates are staying consistent going into 2023?
To be determined, I would say. So Town of Madison is causing a lot of extra complications. So we want to make sure that we know kind of where we're going to stand, and then we'll evaluate it once the budget is set. So unsure at this point.
So we're budgeting currently for it to stay the same, but we may need to increase at some point.
Exactly.
Okay.
Flat. Okay. Any additional questions? Hearing none. All right. You may proceed, Bill.
Oh, buildings and grounds.
Yes.
I'm kind of winging it here. LED light retrofits at the library. We completed those, and we converted our parking lot light poles over to LED around the city hall. We worked with on the library chiller replacements, so we're putting out a procurement bid within the next few weeks to purchase the chiller replacement, and then in 2023, a contract will be let for the installation of that chiller. So we converted 2/3 of the highway shop to LED, which will cut down on our electrical expenses out there, and increased our part-time custodian at the library to full-time for better coverage. We installed a new garage door at City Hall and converted the lights in the City Hall chamber meeting room to LED, I hope. Are they on?
Yep, we're here.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the LED lights are hopeful to be done.
I couldn't remember that if we actually got to that, or if we were going to be doing that yet this year.
Plan is to get it done by the end of the year.
Yep. All right. So we will be doing that. And then next year we do need to replace some boilers in the senior center and the community center, and update the air handler condenser in the community room, or community center. We will be replacing a cold storage roof at the Parks Highway facility. Right now it's got some holes in it, and replacing the water heater at City Hall. Right now it's being replaced this year because it just, it couldn't make it another year.
Okay.
And significant budget changes, not too much out of the norm, other than utility costs are going up, and so those rates reflect that.
Questions? Hearing none, I believe that concludes your portion for this evening, Bill.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
Good night.
Moving on to finance. And Misty, it's your floor.
Thank you. So there's a lot of different things that are included under finance as well. This is one where next year I'm hopeful to get executive summaries for kind of each different piece for you, but for this year, they're all combined still. So significant accomplishments in 2022, myself, well as with the council and the department heads, we prepared the ARPA we prepared the spending plan or change to investment plan for the ARPA federal funding, as well as the TID 6 closure, how we're going to spend that money. We coordinated the approval of the affordable housing extension for TID 6, and then we are working currently on our 100% spend down and our termination audit within TID 6. Working on now and hoping to have done by the end of the year, the 5-year arbitrage report for 2017 debt that was issued. We created TID 14 that obviously we participated in. There were several developer incentive bonds that were issued this year. So the development agreement council approves kind of lays out the criteria. And then when the information is submitted, I audit it and then issue the final pay-go based on the development agreement that was approved. And we issued 3 already this year. The Kornberg Center, which is the TID 12, the big one right here outside City Hall. The Promega Facility Bond in TID 9, which is the new one out by Lacey and Seminole. And then Terrace Point in TID 10, which is Fish Hatchery Road. We did a lot of tasks related to the town of Madison, so trying to figure out all of the logistics and the details of that obviously took a lot of time, as it did for most other departments. Assisted with the implementation of the market pull for the non-represented pay plan, which we've talked about already. And then in the debt service side, we budgeted and completed the prepayment of the TID 4 outstanding debt, which saved the TID a lot of money, which ultimately has more money coming back to us when it closes. For 2023, the review of the senior center decentralized cash was budgeted in 2020, and we still have not had the capacity to get that project done. We're hopeful to be able to in 2023. Based on 2022 grant money that we received, we will likely have to do either a program-specific audit for Dane County, or we might have to do a single audit, which would encompass all of our federal and state funding. So that's something that, as far as I can tell, has never been done at the city of Fitchburg. So that will be an interesting endeavor for us. Next year, early next year, we're hoping to do the affordable housing extension and closure for TID 4. That would then kick off the 100% spend down and the termination audits that would need to be done. The 5-year arbitrage report for the 2018 debt issuance will be due next year. We have to do that final appropriation of Town of Madison assets and liabilities. I'm sure you're just as interested as I am to see what that final number looks like. Tracking all of these ARPA and TID closure projects, the plan is to go through with council the update process in early next year. So once we get through kind of issuing the tax bills, I'll put together a schedule and bring that through you guys, just like we did last time. We'll just update the amounts that were included in the original one. And then we have the ability to prepay the last amount of our TID 6 debt in 2023, which we will take advantage of and save $90,000 in interest cost. For significant changes, the biggest one is the software. So we kind of talked about the lease software already, based on what other municipalities in Dane County are looking at. I think it'll be about $10,000. I have not explored what the options are or any of that yet, but at least have a budget number based on what other municipalities are doing. The biggest one for me is budget software. So it is a $50,000 annual cost expected. We have looked at a couple of different options. I'm not clear which option I think is going to be the best that I hopefully be able to present to you guys for approval. But right now our budget is Word docs and Excel docs, and it's extremely manual. And as you notice, even today I found 5 things that I missed. So I spend a lot of time trying to make this as professional and accurate of a document as I can, and that's very difficult when it's all manual. So that is a pretty hefty price tag, but it will improve obviously my efficiency, but then also all of the department heads as they're providing information to me. And then the transparency piece of it I think will be helpful too. So from what I understand, depending on what software we go to, we might be able to have more charts and graphs and things like that on the website that will make this just a much more transparent and easy process for all of the users. And then $150,000 for the new financial software. So the mayor touched on this in the mayor's letter, and I know we talked about this during the CIP time. So there's been $900,000 in that CIP for financial software. That's if the software we ultimately select is that high implementation cost and lower maintenance cost. It might be the new way that technology companies are doing it, where it's a higher ongoing cost and a lower initial cost. So we budgeted for, in the operating side, that it's going to be that second option, and then removed the 150 from the capital side, figuring that it's easy to move the 150 from operating back to capital, but not necessarily easy to move the other way around. So that's that one. With the closure of TID 6, there were a lot of state aids, or a couple of state aids, where allocated portion of them came to the general fund. So that includes the computer exemption aid and the personal property exemption aid. So that increased our revenues and allowed us to get a lot of the things done that are included in the budget. Same with the town of Madison. So there's a variety of different state aids that are currently going to the town of Madison. City of Madison and I have been working together to figure out how these are going to get allocated and who all we have to notify to make sure that we're getting our fair share going forward. But you'll see a lot of our state aids increased because of those two issues. Another one on the revenue side, so the payment in lieu of taxes that is charged to the water utility increased about $130,000. It's mostly based on the plant value held within the water utility, but then also based on our tax rate. We did see an increase in our shared revenue aid, particularly the utility aid portion of the shared revenue. It was about $50,000 extra, and I believe it's because of the solar farm that was added. It's very unusual that shared revenue actually changes. We did create a new fund for TID 14, which is the new TID that was created. We created a new fund for TID 15 as well, which is the current town TID that's going to be coming over to us on the absorption. We created new funds for the ARPA funding and the TID closure excess increment, and we talked about the transit fund as well, that are all new funds that are included in here. Debt issuance we had planned to issue debt in 2022 in the fall. I delayed that to 2023. Couple of reasons, obviously staff capacity is a piece, but more so the things that we were borrowing for have been delayed. So I didn't want to borrow the money too much in advance of the projects being done and being able to actually spend the money. We reclassified the rent payments for refuse and utilities. They were previously going to the debt service fund, and we moved that to the general fund just to better match the expenses that rent payment is intended to cover. So that will show up differently in the general fund. And then the new accountant position is included in here. So one thing we didn't talk about in the beginning, which I probably should have, is the form was changed. So in the past, we would have had kind of these first two buckets or narratives on the form, but we did add an additional section for alternate strategies, so things that departments either have done in the past to address their growth or could do different if this new proposal isn't approved. And then we added the statistics section. I know there's a lot of interest in numbers to justify the growth that the city has seen. So that was added on all of the new proposal forms as well. And then the priority of the positions if a department requested multiple. So looking at the accountant position, so this position, if approved, we're hoping it would be somebody that's relatively recently graduated with a bachelor's degree and has interest in being an accounting manager and or a finance director someday. So it's an entry level but CPA eligible type position. This position would be delegated tasks from the payroll clerk, the accounting manager, and then myself, and it would make it so that we could stay on top of our responsibilities more efficiently and more timely. If you look at how the finance department has grown, so we did add a half-time position in 2018 to address strictly the utility billing piece of it, but finance department obviously does a lot more than just utility billing. And if you look past that, at least since 1995, the finance department has been the same size. So the workload has grown significantly with the growth that we've had. There's also been state mandates that we've had to comply with. And then we're having more complex funding methods, more complex projects, more grants, more debt, all of that. So it's been pretty difficult to keep up with everything. We have been able to so far because of the technologies we've invested in. So council has been very supportive of helping us use software to help try to keep things up with the new meters, the payroll software, workflow software, all of that. But we're at the point now where that just is too difficult. And then you can see the statistics of how the city has grown in the past several years. So other things I wanted to point out is I was talking about those other funds. So the ARPA and the TID closure, I know the mayor talked about this briefly in the letter, but there were changes that were needed based on the plan. And that includes some things that were originally done through budget amendment in 2022. So specifically the TID closure increment. So the first one on here, I'm on page 256. There was a budget amendment done for 2022 to put $100,000 towards an organizational structure study staffing plan. That amount was dropped to $80,000. Then there's a bunch of other ones too that would have been approved in 2022 to move forward, but we're reducing those amounts. So once this budget is approved, we will either redo the budget amendment we did for 2022, or we'll account for that during the carryover process that we do next year. And at the end of both of these ones, there's a reconciliation that shows, how much money was available, how many times we've kind of earmarked things, and the amount that would be unable to fund at this time compared to what was in the investment plan originally. So the mayor took first crack at this. He wanted to make sure that the 2023 budget balanced, that he only spent or authorized money that met the amount of funding that was available. But council obviously would have the opportunity to shift those priorities or do different delays. It's a mouthful, I know, but that's it.
So, like in years past, we propose something, we have to take out something.
From the property tax side, absolutely. Yep. And then same with the ARPA and the TID closure as well. Because right now the mayor's got basically every dollar earmarked. So if you want to put in a project, another project will have to come out. But also keep in mind with the TID closure in particular, that we hopefully will close TID 4 soon, and that will be an additional amount of money that would be available.
Okay, very good. Alder Wheeler.
So, Misty, for your full-time accountant position, you have that they will be monitoring grant and debt transactions. Who actually looks and writes for grants now?
So we are decentralized for grants. So the departments are responsible for going out and identifying grants and applying for them once they get approval. And then the report filing and all of that for most of them would also be decentralized. But ARPA in particular and some of the other ones that needed finances expertise, those have been assisted with us. We provide the information and then they're filed by the department. So what this position would do, ARPA again in particular, we have to file all the reports and just keep track of how that money is spent. So it would be the person that would make sure that things are posted correctly and accounted for correctly.
And do we provide training for those department heads to write grants?
So not on the writing grant side, I don't believe. So I know Phil in the planning department is kind of our main grant writer. I believe he's gone to training and has some expertise in that area. I think there's at least a couple people in Public Works that have some experience in grant writing as well. But it's decentralized. So each department is responsible for their own.
Okay, thank you.
Even under this new position, it would remain the same.
Correct. Yeah, finance would not take over the writing of the grant. We would just be there to help keep track of the expenses and make sure that they were coded to the grant appropriately.
Once they're approved and received.
Exactly.
Yeah, granted.
The back end.
Sure. Alder Frader, go ahead.
I have several questions. The first one with this position is, what is, because the amount is $94,000, the total cost, and you say that it's an entry level. So it's a staff accountant, like in a CPA firm, it would be like a staff accountant position, like
Exactly.
entry level?
Yep.
Yeah?
So I really need someone that can take my projects and start them and get them, 80% of the way, and then I can take it from there and wrap it up.
So the 94,000 include the payroll taxes, the fringe benefit, and everything?
Correct. So wages, so there's the summary in there that shows by account number if you're interested.
Yeah.
But wages are in the, $70,000 range, and benefits would be the rest of it.
Okay. So my other question is on page...
Oh, if I may, I also assumed where I thought they would be placed on the pay plan. If the position is approved, as well as any other position that hasn't been graded yet, we'll have to go through the consultant to see where they fall on the pay plan, and then they would be paid appropriately. So for budget purposes, we basically guessed.
Yeah, okay. No, I like that. I like that the staff requisition, they have, the metric, because we had to do that in my work too, to prove why we need it with numbers. So the other question is on page 256. When you talk about the fund TID closure excess increment, which fund is this one? Is the tax that we closed, that TID that we closed last year, the number 6?
Yep, so the fund number is 230.
Yeah.
And we'll use it for all of the TIDs that are closed.
Ah, okay.
So right now, the money that's in there and available to be spent would be the TID 6 money.
Okay.
Though I'll warn you, that audit still is not complete, so I don't know
Okay.
how close that flat $2 million amount is. But that's what we're basing it on right now. When TID 4 closes, if it goes as planned, we're assuming there'll be a decent amount of extra increment there too. And our share will also go into this fund.
Okay. With TID number 4, when is that TID is going to close? Which month?
So the big hangup with that one right now is the railroad project that is under contract as required by the expenditure period ending, but has not been completed yet and isn't even to the construction phase yet.
Okay.
So I don't want to close the TID too early and have too much of that outstanding uncertainty with how much that project is going to be.
But this is going to be maybe at mid of 2023.
So the hope is that the project will happen, or at least have really good numbers over the winter.
Yeah.
And then we'll close TID 4 at the same schedule we did TID 6 this last year. So that would be the affordable housing extension in March and the actual closure, the first meeting in April, or maybe a couple meetings earlier.
So my question is, are we using some of that future increment from TID 4 in the 2023 budget already?
No. That's why so many things had to be delayed. Because we didn't feel comfortable budgeting for something that hasn't been decided by council yet.
Exactly. That one was my question. My next question. Okay. But how do you close the gap that we have in the budget with all the 11 new positions? You know, there is a gap. So from where the money is coming?
Yep, so the bulk of it, so we did have a great net new construction.
Yeah.
4.16% net new is fantastic. We are planning to use the TID 4 levy limit adjustment a year early, just like we did with TID 6.
So we-
about 500,000 available there. The other one that I probably should talk about too, that the mayor alluded to, is the Fitchburg EMS levy limit adjustment. So there's a special levy limit adjustment that's allowed for municipalities that are participating in a joint EMS and or a joint fire district. And that has a whole different set of rules. End of the day, as long as Fitchrona's budget that they charge to all three municipalities together goes up from last year less than 9.7%, which it very clearly does now, and all three municipalities pass a resolution saying they want to take this levy limit adjustment, we will get any increase that Fitchrona goes up from us, that comes in as a levy limit adjustment. So that's 65,000 that we can get based on this current budget if all three municipalities pass a resolution.
Yeah, there was an article on
there was.
In the League of Municipality about that. So my other question is, okay, so we are increasing the budget with all these new position, like $700,000.
Yep.
What is going to happen in 2024, 2025, when the next construction go to 2%? From where the money is going to come to close that gap?
That's a fantastic question. So the reason why we've been able to add so much staff last year and then this year are because of the two TID closures, which were very large TIDs, and then the town of Madison absorption, that levy limit adjustment we get for that. Those are very unique one-time things. They are base building, so at least it's not a gap that we'll have to fill because of that use in the future. But we can't expect for as high of net new construction and these one-time kind of allowances in our budget in future years. So the next TID that closes, which is kind of the big time we get a big adjustment, is 2031 projected right now.
Okay, so because I am very concerned with all the new position and we are increasing the budget for for the future, $700,000 every year. So my question is, the net construction is going to go down. This is, if we don't increase, we don't bring more project and big project. Some of the projects that we are building are not-for-profit organization that we are not going to collect 0 cent.
Yep.
So my question is, what is going to happen in 2024 and 2025? Because, we have the opportunity to close these tax incremental district, but they are one-time event. We are not going to close. You mentioned the next closing is going to go in 2031. So So this is what I'm saying, because we are going to make a decision now about if we are going to approve all of these positions or not, because we need to think about 24 and 25 and then the following year. So, I want to be sure that if I'm going to, from where the money is going to come in future budget to cover all of those
So I'd like
salary.
I'd like to go back for a moment, and when we close a TID, we get two types of relief.
Yeah.
So one is the extra money that the TID collected, more than it spent. We get our share of that. That is one-time money. We want to make sure we spend on one-time things. The levy limit adjustment that we get is an ongoing base building adjustment.
Okay.
So that's why we can use that on things like staffing and ongoing
How much
costs.
is that adjustment?
I think it
Where
was,
is it?
so TID 4, you know what, that's on the levy limit sheet, so let's get there quick. So the levy limit calculation is included in the budget. It's page 20. So we got an additional 1.6% because of the TID 6 closure, and we'll get more than that because of the TID 4 closure. So at the end, down here, I think our total TID 4 levy limit adjustment that we'll get for the 2024 budget officially will be $690,000. 185,000 of that is already identified in the CIP to be spent in 2024. And so that left $505,000 that could be spent in the operating budget
Okay.
on ongoing costs.
But so how much is that adjustment you say is
So-
1.6?
So on page 20, it's this green box right here.
Okay, let me see. I need to take a look at this. Page 26. 20. Okay.
Total, 185 is earmarked in the CIP, the adopted CIP, 424, and then that would leave 505 that could be spent on operating. And so this budget uses that 505,000 a year early by using the same strategy we did last year. But you're 100% right that those big levy limit adjustments is not something that we can count on in the future.
Yeah.
Large increases in staffing and all that are unlikely in the future. So we should be able to at least maintain these increases like we normally would other years. Oh, I'm sorry. What happens when I talk with my hands?
Okay, so those adjustments, I want to be clear, those adjustments are going to be, they increase the tax levy, so each year. It's going to, it's an increment.
So it sets up the new base.
Days,
So then
yeah.
next year,
Yeah,
net
you're
new
gonna-
construction will be on this new total.
Yeah.
And then-
Okay.
But you have an excellent point. I mean, assuming that net new construction is going to be at least 3%, which is our general CPI
Yeah.
inflation amount, is aggressive in some respects. You know, probably not for us in the next couple of years, but who knows what the future holds.
Okay. Yeah, that one is key because, it says 11 position or 12 position and
Yep. Yeah, we definitely shouldn't be expecting to increase as much as we have the last 2 years. These are very much so isolated opportunities.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, what we will do is I will ask, in a moment here, I'll ask for a recess for this evening, and we will reconvene tomorrow evening. And
Just from the Finance Committee.
just from the Finance Committee, yes, that's correct. So do I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion from Alder Gerhart,
Second.
and we actually have a second. Since it's a recess, it's probably similar to,
Yep, so you just take a vote
Yep.
and then you recess.
all right. Those in favor of the recess and reconvening tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it. We are recessed until tomorrow evening. Thank you.